All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Louder tonight. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting of the East Troy School District Board of Education and all other meetings of the board are open to the public in compliance with state statute. Notice of the meeting has been sent to the media and/or has been publicly posted in an attempt to make the citizens of the district aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. We have the meeting minutes from November 14th.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. We're going to move up the program spotlight before public participation tonight. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay.
All right, it is on. All right, as the board knows, and hopefully the community also knows and understands too, every month at our school board meetings, we like to highlight one department or one program within our school district here. So in the past, you've seen a couple of departments already, but we thought this month, why not showcase our music department, and not only to be able to see them, but also hear them as you guys were walking in. So it was a great way, I think, to start our meeting here. So I'd like to introduce Nick Bertino from the high school. Madison Hani is our elementary music teacher. Amberly Selleck, music and high school, choir, music. And Curtis Wetzel, our middle school band member. So as you know, as a school board member or as a community member, our fine arts department and our music department has a really strong tradition of supporting our students and really having them grow within this area of passion. And these four individuals are new to our school district this year. And so certainly they stand on the shoulder of some giants and fantastic individuals who dedicated many years of their lives, but I can certainly say that we are very blessed and honored to have them as part of our school community here. So with that, I will turn that over to them.
Good evening. My name is Nick Bertino. I'm the high school band director. Busy time of the year for high school band. We just got done performing this music not only at your meeting, but the craft fair. So we had put on a bit longer shows, about 20 minutes, and it was a lot of fun. Additionally, we're getting ready for a winter concert on Monday, and then once that's over, we immediately fall into solo and ensemble time, and then prepping for a whole new concert series. Big thing that I'm working on this year is recruitment from 8th graders, and even I'm the 5th grade band director also, so it starts there and ends with me, right? So I have one student that was actually here tonight, Isabel Williams. She's a tuba player, and she comes over, she's just starting to come over once a week to Prairie View to work with some of our younger students, and she's actually playing at the concert with us on Thursday morning for 5th grade. So, and then the next thing, and this is my partner in crime over there, Curtis, we've been doing a lot of work to get 8th graders and high schoolers start working together a little more. So it was it was the second football game, the home football game of the year. Although it was senior night, we made it 8th grade night. So we had about 20 8th graders come in, play pregame with the football, with the marching band, and then they sat with us during the sideline game, and then they watched us perform our halftime show. So it was a great opportunity for me to meet 8th graders, and and let them see what the high school band's all about. And then lastly, we have on this week, Thursday, we have 8th grade night. So for pep band. So they're coming in, playing pregame with us, and then watching and sitting along with us. And then the last thing that I'm doing to really push our community support is we have alumni night on January 5th for pep band. And I've started a Facebook group that already has 56 members. So there's classes dated back to all the way to 2009 and 2010 that are interested in coming and supporting the band. Yeah. So a lot of good things going in high school band. Thank you very much. Have a good
Did a
night.
great job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Bringing it down a little bit, my name is Curtis Wetzel, middle school band director and 6th grade choir and general music. Couple of things we've had this trimester that have surprised me to no end. First of all, it's part of our district ELO to work on literacy and reading with our students. And part of 6th grade band specifically's final assignment in band this year was creating personalized dictionaries. If you don't know what these are, Miss McBurney, yeah? She brought that to our attention during a staff meeting where students not only find the definition of words that they would normally see, but put it in their own words as well. So I had students put together short presentations of anywhere from 3 to 5 music words, things like allegro, vivace, other things that sound Italian that nobody knows what they mean, and submit them. And what I'll be doing throughout this trimester, next trimester, is throwing some of the highlight slides into my own slides in the morning to help kids learn and remember these words and learn how to interpret these words. One other special thing that happened this past weekend at the Arts and Crafts Fair, we had 6 different middle school ensembles perform. And these weren't large ensembles. These were anywhere from we had a flute solo all the way to a saxophone quartet. And the special thing about this one, because while Mr. Bertino didn't mention this, but we got an email about a month before that this was happening. Oh, can you play? I mean, I guess. I told students and said, I'll give you the band room, you got to bring your own music, and you got to learn it yourself. And they did. Click twice. That was a horrible picture of me. You didn't need to see it, that's fine. Here is the piece that started this whole shindig. Now I'm going to stop it right there because you had a wonderful presentation of Carol the Bells earlier tonight. But the reason I wanted to show that is because that tune, again, I didn't give it to them. I didn't even find the arrangement. That was written by the lead saxophone player, Isabel Banks. So I just wanted to say we have a composer coming up to the high school. Be excited. This next one, and again, we won't listen to the whole thing. This is the first time, at least I've heard of, and again, I haven't been here very long, that the middle schools had a jazz combo. Now, for those of you that don't know, jazz combos aren't very straightforward. You don't get the music and just play it, be done. You have to come up yourself with what's the order, who's gonna solo, what's the solo gonna sound like. This drummer isn't even a drummer, he's a euphonium and tuba player, but he did a bang up job. And I just wanna show this off because it blew my mind what these kids did, again, on their own, without me poking or prodding or saying you have to do this.
Here, I know how important jazz was to the music program here. So I was not surprised at all when these 3 gentlemen, 2 of which have brothers in our high school jazz band, said, Mr. Wetzel, we want to do a jazz combo. So, to close out the night, here is a more standard ensemble.
It was 10 a.m. It
East
was
Troy
not the
Middle
night.
School's Jazz Combo.
So that will play out.
Thank you so much, everybody. Stay tuned for the high school brass ensemble in about 10 minutes.
You heard them, they were great. But again, I didn't teach them how to do that. I didn't sit in the room and hold their hand. They said, Mr. Wetzel, we're doing a jazz combo. And I said, okay, what are you playing? They said, I don't know. And so I gave them the music and checked in a week later, and they were good. Reminds me of a little bit of, I don't know, student-led learning. Is that the right word? And student empowerment, there we go. I'm still working on my first-year teacher stuff. And then finally, last thing I promised. Because of the course changes proposed for the general music class next year, Amberly Selleck and I, she helped me out with 8th grade general music this year. She walked me through a wonderful, wonderful lesson plan that had students learning about hip hop, and it ended with students composing their own songs. And can I just say, I didn't expect them to want to do it. Like, we got to the end of it, they wrote it, and I said, okay. And they said, when are we getting in the studio, Mr. Wetzel? And I said, huh? When are we going to record this? And so now I have 2, unfortunately very vulgar, but still student compositions, completely original by them. So there are good things happening here at East Troy Middle School. Thank you.
Right, I'm a lot shorter, so. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having the music department. We really appreciate the school board's support as well as all of our administrators, so thank you. I wrote mine out. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mrs. Hani, and I'm the kindergarten through 5th grade general music teacher in East Troy, which means I work with around 600 students, kindergarten through 5th grade. I'm honored to be up here today talking about what the students have been accomplishing this school year. Just in these past few months. Recently, our 4th grade students had a holiday concert where they worked very hard to learn their music. Not only did they use their voices, but we also featured instruments like the boom whackers and the kazoos. Imagine having 110 kids trying to play the kazoo for the first time. It is an adventure. This coming Thursday, the 5th grade students have a combined band and choir concert with myself and Mr. Bertino. They've been working really hard on their music for that, and they're very excited to put on a show for the community. Later this school year, we have kindergarten through 3rd grade who also have their own music concert, and if you check the school calendar, those should be up there somewhere. Since September, the students have been learning a lot of music theory that builds from grade to grade. For example, in kindergarten, we're learning about steady beat, but then in 5th grade, we're starting to talk about 16th notes and rhythm and note names, so all those big things. The students have been singing, dancing, playing instruments, and some of the instruments that we often play are the bucket drums, ukuleles, rhythm sticks, xylophones, and boom whackers. And in the spring, the 4th grade students get to break out their recorders, which they're very excited to start doing that as well. Something really cool that I've been starting in 5th grade is we recently purchased 30 ukuleles. So in 5th grade, the students all get to do a whole ukulele unit, and I'm really excited to start that this year. I look forward to the rest of the school year, and I love working in East Troy, so thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amberly Selleck. I am the choir teacher, 7th through 12th this year. I'm hoping next year I'll be 6th grade as well. It was really interesting coming here. The children in my choir classes were beautiful, beautiful singers. They had really great foundation. And my high school students in particular were a little bit sad, to be honest, to lose someone beloved. And so that was a transition. And so our first concert, which was the end of October, was to create tools for transitions. So all our songs were, how do we handle when we're not happy? How do we handle changes? So we had things like Lacrimosa, Mozart, that deep grief and facing it. We had to climb every mountain because it takes a lot to get over all the struggles that come into our lives. We had a new song called New Beginnings, because we honor what comes before us. And I certainly honor everyone who came before me, because that's why I have this beautiful choir. So after that concert, right away we went into the rehearsal process, audition process for the musical. My background is strong in musical theater, so I'm helping with the drama department, getting that inside the school. And all the music teachers are involved with that. So I'm choreographing, directing, music directing, but Curtis is helping with music as well, and tech. And Nick is going to be doing the pit, and he's already rehearsing with them. We've all been rehearsing since beginning of November. Our performances will be in the end of January, and I think you're going to be very, very proud of them. They're pretty amazing. It's all blocked. 2 months in, and we're blocked this week. And we're just ready to run and get polished. I wanted to introduce to you Caden Fridley. He is incredible. One of the kids that I got, and I'm so thankful he's a junior, because I get to keep him for another year after this. But he's a leader in band. He's a leader in choir, and he's a lead in our musical. So I wanted to just invite him to come up here and talk to you about his experiences.
Thank you, Mrs. Selleck. That was very nice. Hello, I'm Caden Fridley. I'm a junior at East Troy High School. And yeah, I've been in the music department since 6th grade when it was first offered. And so it's been 6 long, very fun years. And if I can just say one thing about music, is that it makes you disciplined. If you're there to learn and you want to get better, it'll make you a better person. I'm in cross country, I'm in track, and having music, school, plus athletics, it's hard to balance, but I think it makes my time management skills that much better. And I think a lot of musicians are just better people because they're involved with music. And Mr. Bertino and Ms. Selleck are doing a great job transitioning to East Troy. I'm very proud of them. And, that's all. Thank you.
We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into public participation. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight? No? All right. Financial report, that's going to be tabled.
No financial.
Okay. Somebody like to make a motion to table that?
I'll make a motion to table financial report.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's been tabled. Discussion action items, student rep report. Do we have a student rep tonight? Okay, all right. And we'll move into the survey results presentation.
Yeah, so we have Bill Foster here tonight. Bill's from School Perceptions and has been working with the board on the development of the community survey. And so Bill's going to spend tonight going over the results of the survey for the board. And then obviously, this is an informational discussion item, so you can ask questions and then you guys can have a discussion as the board. You'll notice the next agenda item, which is agenda item D, is if determined tonight by the school board, you may select a date for a special meeting to discuss whether or not to go or no go, as we call it, in regards to the referendum or referendum questions and what that may look like. So tonight is not at all about discussing specifically a resolution or resolutions. It's more about listening to the results, asking for clarification, having some discussion maybe amongst each other in regards to the possible direction on the results, and then deciding when we get to item D whether or not do you want to have a special meeting towards further discussion of a possible resolution and what that may look like.
Justin, Justin, is the live stream showing that? Thank you.
Bill, the floor is yours.
All right, technology is great when it works. Again, I'm Bill Foster with School Perceptions. My job is to take you through what I would call a preliminary report tonight. It's preliminary because the deadline was just last Monday. We're still getting a few surveys trickling in, but I'll explain it's not going to change at all, so we've got really good data for you. So your report is organized really in three primary areas. The background information, everything that was in the survey is in the report. So the board, next month, if you scratch your heads and say, what did that survey actually say? It's in the report. So everything that was here is in the report. We're going to look at the demographic information, then we're going to slice and dice the data and try to make sense of it for you, and then we'll wrap up with questions at the end. So again, School Perceptions, we've been around for over 20 years. We're a Wisconsin-based company. We have worked in all 50 states, and we've done over 10,000 staff, student, parent surveys, some of them for East Troy, and we're up to about 900 community-wide surveys like the one we're going to cover tonight. So your process started by mailing a survey that looked like this out to every household in the district. People could take it online. There was a unique alphanumeric code they could enter in, or they could fill it out paper and pencil, and then they sent it back to us, and we entered the data in. So as of actually this morning, we had 1,154 respondents, 292 paper came back. We have a 14.6% response rate, which is good, but most importantly, from a statistical margin of error, we're at plus or minus 3.03%. If we get another 500 surveys, it might drop down to plus or minus 2.5%, so it's not going to change much. A couple demographic questions. What is your age? When I look at this slide, I always go to the top. I want to make sure our seniors are well represented, and at 30%, they're actually overrepresented. But when it comes to voting, seniors are overrepresented. When it comes to taking surveys and voting, our 18 to 24-year-olds tend not to take surveys or vote. So this is actually a bit skewed older, but that's good. Do you live in the district? We had 89% of our sample that said yes, 10% no, and 1% that weren't sure where they live. It's anonymous, so we don't know who the 1% is. But it raises the question, who are those 10% who are taking our survey that don't live in our district? And the answer really comes from three groups. First is staff. Not all staff were asked to participate, but not all staff live in the district. Second would be parents that choose to open a roll into the district. And third would be if I'm a landowner, maybe I received one, but I don't live here. In all three cases, we're going to remove the non-residents from the funding support question because they don't vote. So that's why that question was there. We did have representation from every municipality, about a third from the village of East Troy and another third from the town, and then it drops off all the way down to a few folks from the town of LaGrange and Eagle. We had 17% of our sample were employees and 39% were parents. And we had one question on communication. How would you like to receive information? Here we thought it made sense to take the staff out completely because we've got our own ways to communicate with the staff internally. We then broke it into the parents, are in kind of the teal blue color. Their number one by far is email at 86%. Then it dropped down to district mailings and the website, just a little under 50%. And then, let's see, maybe Facebook at 28%. So if you were to ask parents if they're on Facebook, probably 60 or 70% would say yes to that. But as far as getting information that way, about 28%. So you still need a presence there. And then our non-parent, non-staff, they're kind of in the purple, I guess. Their number one is district mailings at about 2/3. And then it drops down to the East Troy Times and East Troy News, just under a third there for the non-parent, non-staff. Then again, the information that was in the paper survey itself is in this report. So you started out and talked about the difference between operational and capital referendum, because in your case, you're actually considering both. So we had to explain the difference for folks. And then we moved into the operational challenges that you have, primarily in the area of staffing. And by the way, you're not unique. Every school district in the state is dealing with the labor shortage, and you've got increasing costs. And then we go out and we test a $3 million operating referendum. This would be for each of the next 3 years. This would allow you to maintain most of your programs and services. We then broke it into 3 mutually exclusive subgroups. So why did we do that? Because right now our data set is overrepresented with staff and parents and underrepresented with the non-parent, non-staff. So to remove any skewing, we kind of look at 3 separate groups. The staff is really important in that they talk to their friends, their neighbors, and the parents every day. So if your staff isn't on board with what you're proposing, you're kind of dead in the water. But from a voting standpoint, they represent less than 1% of your community, so they don't get a lot of votes, but they're really important. They're at 84% yes with 6% no, 10% undecided, which is quite strong. The second group we looked at was the parents or caregivers. They're at 69% yes with 20% no, so better than 3-to-1 support from our parents. And then the most important group, because they literally represent the majority of your voters, either work in the district nor have kids in the district, we call these folks the purple people. They're at 42% yes, 43% no. So then, which raises the question, well, how do you make sense of that? So we did a little additional analysis for you. And for the sake of this, we took the staff out completely, because again, they represent less than 1% of your voters. We assumed that the parents are about 25% and your non-parent, non-staff are about 75%. We then did a weighted average with those assumptions, and we came out at 48.75%. So if I was Santa Claus and I could change things, but no, that's the data. Now, it's not counting any undecided, but you're going to be on the bubble with this proposed operating referendum. You're right there within the margin of error. But then you went on to test 2 facility challenges. And these are different from the operating. So of course, the operating, you would have to ask the taxpayers for permission to exceed the state revenue limit. The facility challenges are typically paid for with a bond. It's like taking out a loan. You also need permission for that to go out and issue a bond. And there were 2 projects that were tested. The first was to enhance safety and security, so we described what that would be in terms of renovating Prairie View's main entrance, relocating and renovating the middle school main entrance, and redesigning the middle school traffic pattern outside. Same analysis, that would cost $3.7 million. Again, the staff was all in at 82% with 9% no. The parents are at 71% with 19% no. And the non-parent, non-staff, they're actually at 49% yes, 38% no, so they like this one a little bit more. Same weighted analysis, we landed at 54.5%. So there's support, not strong support, but over majority support for the safety and security project. And then we've got some aging building infrastructure, replacing roofs. They're important that they don't leak. Repairing an upper gym wall, and some old science classrooms in the middle school. This was this represented a $23 tax impact for $7.7 million. Again, staff is solid at 85%. The parents are at 71%, and our non-parent, non-staff are at 52%. So same analysis. This one actually had pretty good support at 56.75. And then we had one question overall. We put this survey or this question on a lot of surveys we do these days. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend the district to a friend or family member? You can see the breakout in colors. Green is good, red is bad. Your district average was 6.84, just under our comparison average. Comparison is made up of similar schools like yours, so you're just a little bit lower, not much. So we did a survey. What did we learn? We learned that if the $3.7 million facility referendum to enhance safety and security was held today as a standalone question, it would likely be supported. And we tested the $7.7 million, and again, if that was held as a standalone question, that would likely be supported. And then if the $3 million operating referendum were held today as a standalone question, it's really on the bubble, too close to call. The challenge is, of course, as you add these together, the tax impact increases. So I added a 4th kind of bullet. If they were placed on the ballot with a facility referendum, support would likely drop. So as the cost goes up, support doesn't go up, support goes down as the tax impact gets greater and greater. And I think that's important for the board to keep in mind as you think about what you're going to do moving forward. So, questions on the survey results?
I'm a little worried about how low the response rate is at 14.38%.
Yeah, don't be worried about that. Statistically, when you see, like if you open up a USA Today, the survey sample size is about 500. We're up over 1,000, and you could get another 1,000 people to take it, and I would bet you $100 it won't change by more than 1%. So
Okay.
it just, that's the way statistics work. They just kind of lock in. And we'll do one final report for you once we have all the data, but you've got good data, good representation across the board.
How does that compare to other surveys you've done with similar school
So,
districts?
Yeah, it's funny. During COVID, the one good thing about COVID was it increased our survey response rate. People were so bored, they wanted to take the survey. So it's actually dropped down. Average response rate's now around 16-17% for us this last year. But I suspect you're going to get closer towards that as we get a few more surveys in.
Okay.
So one of the things we wanted to know was sort of that cohort look to know, did the same people say yes? right, to multiple things? Or were those different groups of people that were saying yes to one thing and yes to a different thing?
There's high correlation. We were going to wait till we get all the data in to run that, but there's high correlation. So generally speaking, there's a few anomalies, but generally speaking, people that are supportive of all three, you know, if they're supporting the operating, they pretty much carry over.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
some,
We'll definitely want to see that.
yeah, there's some folks that are definitely no, definitely no, definitely no. And they're pretty consistent.
Bill, off your, historically, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. I mean that positively to you. I do. And that is, so, first of all, I guess double question, and that is first, can you state a little bit about like, what it, this, I guess if you want to use for better terms, the success rate of following the survey and what you have found through your years of experience on the survey? And then the second thing is, I guess, the difficulty that you might see with the results of this survey.
Yeah. So the first question, is the survey data predictive of the outcome? We actually have a PhD researcher on staff who loves to go through and look at that. And we just finished that up this year, actually, in Wisconsin, where I think not only year to date, but for as long as we've been doing this, we're at 94.5% predictive in terms of the data being accurate over the past 20 years. Actually, in Minnesota, we're still perfect. I don't know why we're perfect in Minnesota, but the data's accurate there. And so it really is a good reflection. One of the dynamics I think that happens is the people that don't know, don't care, typically don't vote, don't take the survey. The people who have developed an opinion either for or against, they fall into a category of what I would call the influentials. They talk to their friends and neighbors. This is a dumb idea. This is a great idea. This is so important. And they're passionate. So they're the ones who take the survey, and that's why I think the survey data ends up being so predictive. Whereas if you go out and ask someone, they say, I don't really care. You know, that's not a good candidate for a survey. So it does select people who have a passion both for and against what's being proposed. And then as far as, I guess the second question is concerns about your unique situation. Again, you're not unique, but just in that as you really have to, you get 2 questions to put on the ballot per calendar year. There's not a fall referendum. So what some districts might do is wait, ask 1 question in the spring, 1 question in the fall, but there's not a general election. We don't either, odd years, we don't have anything, and even years we either have gubernatorial or presidential. So there's not an option to put anything on, next fall. So you really have 2 questions that you could consider, and one could be an operating, one could be a capital. But the concern is, as you put those together, it's going to increase the tax impact on taxpayers. And I guess as a board, you have to think about what's most important. I mean, and both things are very important. Not having, buckets in your classrooms because the roofs are leaking, that's important. But also being able to compete for labor and having great teachers, like your music program, that's important too. So you have to decide what's most important and then come up with a plan that you think the community would support. And it's tough. It's not easy.
Do you have any data that supports pushing the, let's say, for example, the operating referendum to a higher number? What could the district do to push that to a higher number? Do you have any data, any insight into that?
You mean in terms of asking for more money that was on the
No, just right now, you say we're on the bubble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Percentage number?
Percentage-wise,
Oh.
pushing that a little bit higher.
Yeah, and we didn't test anything else, so there's nothing, quantitative that I can answer that question for. One thing that you look at are potentially psychological thresholds, and that can either be the tax impact. It's going to cost me more than $100. That's too much money. That might be a psychological impact, or 2.9 million might be perceived as less, or 2.8 and 3, that sort of thing. But I can't tell you that if you drop it down by 200,000, you're going to pick up 4%. I have no idea about that.
Do you have any experience with any other districts that have done something to enhance their passability, I guess you'd say.
It's really just getting the and it's so hard. It's getting information out in front of people, but if you hold an open house, you might get 10 people that would show up. So it's really hard to get your information out there. I would say staff are key, because they really do have, I think there was a study once done that the custodial staff has more credibility than the school board. But it's really getting everybody, at least within the staff, kind of aware of the challenges and what's being proposed, and that helps. But it's hard to get people's attention on this kind of thing.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill while he's here?
When do you think we can see the rest of the details and the full write-up?
I would say next week is the answer, I guess. So what we'll do is we'll get everything else entered that comes in this week, and then we can do the additional analysis so you have that. But again, I would bet this report won't change by maybe 0.1% or something like that.
Yeah, maybe I am foolish to want it, but I just want the sort of breakdown by the people who responded yes to this also
Sure.
responded yes or no, because it's close, right?
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
kind of have to dig into it now.
Okay.
It's not an obvious answer
Yeah.
either way, so.
It's about down the middle as you can get.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, appreciate it, Bill.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Do you guys want to have any further dialogue in regards to, I know that it's the first you've had a chance to see anything or hear it, so I think studying it, thinking about it, reflecting on it's really important, right? I guess I could almost move to D, and that is, would you be interested in having a meeting next Monday? Too soon, not soon enough? Wait a little longer? Your guys' decision. One of the things obviously is giving you ample time to have that dialogue as you work towards whether or not to go to a referendum, and if so, what the resolutions would look like, the questions, and knowing that we need to have any form of a resolution done by, is it the 24th of January at the latest, Kathy? 24th. At the very latest, it would need to be adopted, and legal counsel would tell you that obviously they would like to have that well before then, and they would like to have usually 3 weeks to work on that resolution. So we'd like to have that resolution be worked on prior to that, the January 16th board meeting, so you could hopefully be determining if you were that night. So there's work to be done between now and the 16th and getting everything to legal counsel even for consideration of the verbiage. So that being said, it's kind of one of those things that, obviously, it's a crunch now, right? So I guess I'd be wanting to know from you, what timeline would you like to set up a meeting to at least have dialogue on this topic in regards to giving administration direction to work with legal counsel, if at all, on possible different resolution or resolutions? And I'll be blunt, I think one of the heavy topics is gonna be, based on the data, and obviously more data to come, as Anna said, right, that may sway the possibilities in a lot of different ways. But a discussion point might have to be in regards to what's the highest priorities.
Right, of course.
Right? Is it the operation, or is it the facilities, or is it a combination now? And in working off of a combination of prioritization based on those results.
I guess what's everybody's initial thoughts, seeing it with first moving forward with another meeting, and just overall, what are your thoughts on
My thoughts
pursuing something?
My thoughts are, if you're gonna convince somebody or sway somebody, you need to get some information out to those people. I've always kind of believed that. We kind of started that here with the celebration, like tonight of the band and so on and so forth. But I personally underneath the philosophy that if you want somebody to help you, you need to help yourself. And so if we are showing the community that we are helping ourselves by adding the content of like we have done with the skilled trades, gaming, and so on and so forth, that we are trying to move forward with helping ourselves to bring more students in here, and that the district is doing a good job with the resources that it has, then I personally think that you might be able to move enough people into accepting an operational referendum. And maybe if you trim off some of the capital, you might be able to get both. And maybe, like the gentleman says, trim down the 3 million to 2.8 or something like that. It's just, you're, like I said, right on the bubble. So you have to move a few people over into the yes column. And I think the only way to do that is to get the word out there of what's going on in the district so that people feel good about putting their money into the district, that it's a value, that their money has value to it, and that they're not just throwing it down a hole to a bunch of incompetent people that don't know how to handle money, which is not the case. So that's kind of my thought on where this should go. And it was going to be one of my future recommendations that we start to educate public and the surrounding areas of what we have going on here, to start to get people interested in the school and to have them start to come and maybe even get a few students to transfer out of some of the districts. Have a lot to offer, but we need to get that word out there, and I don't think we're getting the word out there. You know, if we had the word out there, we would be packed tonight. You know, so we need to get that word out there, and I don't know how the avenue to get the word out there is, whether it's radio, newspaper, or whatever, but the district has accomplished many good things. We just got to get that word out there to kind of sway the rest of the people enough so that you can have your operational referendum. That's just my opinion.
Okay. What other information would anybody need to, or thoughts on a special meeting? Any other questions out there?
I'd like to kind of scrape back over the capital projects to really prioritize within that prioritized list. You know, scrutinize that a bit more. To just be solid on, you know, I mean, they're all must-dos, right? But the most must-dos of the must-dos. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time as a board going through that.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's easy to say that it all needs to be done, and it does, but, you know, if we can't get it all supported, I have my own opinions about, you know, how to prioritize between operational and capital, but we all have to agree on that, so I think that's the conversation.
Here's another thing the survey showed us, that the public or the community supports the capital. So is that just because of the low cost, or is it because they feel it's worthy, but they don't support the referendum? Is that because of the high cost, or is it because they feel like we're not worthy? You know, there's kind of a conflict there that if you took them, I guess if you took the dollar value out of it, there's a conflict between approving the capital and not approving or being on the bubble on the operating. So what is the situation where people are unsure that the district needs the operational referendum? So that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, the most reasonable answer is it's the dollar amount, because there is such a discrepancy from
Yeah, there
the
is.
167 to the $9 or $23.
Yes. So the value of the dollar amount to the value of what they're gonna get out of it is allows that person to release that money. So if you're not gonna spend money on something you feel that's not a value, you know, so we need to, as a district or as a school board or whatever, need to show the value of the district and what we're doing to help ourselves and what we've done to, you know, cut costs, so on and so forth. You know, it's kind of a personal opinion.
So if it really comes down to the tax impact more than the dollar amount, which is kind of shown in the survey results, because the capital items are a lot more expensive than the operational expenses, so they're really not, at least it appears, not looking at that total dollar amount, they're looking at the tax impact, which makes
Tax
sense.
impact, yeah.
So that's the number we gotta try to work on to bring down to a certain degree.
And then you
And-
have to, whatever that number is, you have, in order for it to pass, the people have to feel it's a value. It's a value that they're gonna do it. You're not gonna pay for something if you don't feel it's a good value. So you have to convince the district or the community that it's a good value. Just my opinion. I think everybody will agree with that.
What do you think about a special meeting? I mean, we got, the next couple of weeks are gonna be tough, I know, with the holidays coming up, and
Yeah, I can't do Monday, but I could do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday probably next week.
When will we have the data next week, though?
By Monday.
By Monday, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think next week if we can swing it.
Or I could do this week too, yeah.
Adam, Steve, what do you think for, okay.
I'm available next week. I'd like to have the results, at least for a day, to be able
I
to
can't do Wednesday.
formulate some questions and some thoughts. and
Tuesday
things
I could
like
do.
that. But this is good to have this, at least we've got something to go on. So,
I haven't taken a breath in like 4 weeks, so yeah, it's good to finally see the numbers.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
itching to see that, so.
Yeah.
Can we get this preliminary, can we get the preliminary slides? Okay,
Okay.
great. That'll help, thank you.
By Monday night we would, but Dale can't make it Monday. No.
So Dale can't do Monday.
I can't do Wednesday, Chris can't do Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Unless we do Wednesday a little bit earlier.
I'm fine, anytime.
Thinking 5, 6 o'clock at night?
5 o'clock Wednesday I could do,
What's Wednesday?
The 21st.
21st.
Yeah, I should be able to do that.
Steve, Adam, that's okay? Wednesday? 5?
Yeah, I think I should be fine for that.
Sure.
21st at 5.
High school library, Wednesday, I'll say, Mike. So Wednesday, December 21st at 5 o'clock PM, high school library for a special meeting for the board to continue to talk about the survey results. And from what from your guys' conversation, I wrote down, because I'm trying to help you, trying to put the agenda together a little bit. The topics will be a little bit about looking at the survey results, prioritizing the discussion about prioritizing the capital projects, discussion between operation and/or capital, and discussion about controlling of the tax impact.
Mm-hmm. Should be good.
Anything that you'd want on that agenda besides those topics? And it covers.
Andy, I'm not saying you need to be there, but if you want to provide any other input, if we're gonna scrutinize these projects. We've got everything we've got so far, right? Yeah, okay.
I'd also like to talk, some discussion about how to sway the voters. So I want to talk a little bit about that too. You know, about our programming and our path forward on this.
Communication.
Yeah. There'll be plenty of time for that after we make a formal decision, which
Yeah.
probably won't happen until January either way, but.
Yeah, I just want to preempt it because if we do decide to go forward, then we want to make sure that we've communicated way in front of that before there is a question, or if there is a referendum.
Sure.
And you want to do that anyway, because you want to start to attract other students into the district, which is going to help anyway. So it's kind of a 2-4 on
Yep.
that.
Okay. All right, I think that'd be good. Anybody else need anything at this time? Any other questions for Bill or anybody else?
Thanks so much, Bill.
Okay,
Drive
thank you.
safely.
Okay, next item, budget for the 23-24 planning.
So on page 8 of your board packets is the latest Baird forecasting model. Please keep thinking of this as a working document, because daily, monthly, we find out new pieces of information and we feed it into the model. But November 11th, I had a Baird forecasting model workshop, one of those all-day events where we roll forward to the next 5 years from the previous 5 years. And a lot of statewide assumptions are updated, like equalization aid, for example. So equalization aid changes mill rates, because how much state aid you get within the revenue limit formula directly impacts then how much property tax you collect. So that's been updated in this latest look. And again, what we're doing now is we locked 22-23 based on October, based on, in October, a lot of numbers were known. Your September count, your October equalization aid, your October property values from the Department of Revenue. We set the levy. So 22-23 essentially locked. And now we rolled forward to 23-24, all through a 5-year look to 27-28. So on page 8 is that new model rolled forward. And then, if you recall, you all redid those board assumption worksheets. And I had that at the back of the last school board packet, how everybody voted, the sums and the averages. So I put those assumptions in this too. And I would say we got a little bit more conservative on the assumptions over last July. So like the enrollment methodology, we didn't use the Baird cohort enrollment method. We didn't average to that as a board, and that tends to have kids gain a little bit through the grades. We just settled upon the roll forward enrollment method, which again is going to be a little more conservative, a little less students going forward. Open enrollment, the last time we did the assumptions, we had flat projections. This time we wanted to use the 5-year trend. So that is that we're going to gain in 8 kids, but out we're going to lose 13 kids. You all did average to a $100 per pupil revenue limit assumption in here. And then you all averaged to a salary of 4% for staff built into this model, and an insurance increase of 12%. And that makes up around 80% of our budget, the salaries and benefits. And then other expenses, again, that was on the assumptions worksheet. You asked to do 6%. That's where everybody voted on average to include in the assumptions. So what happened based upon the previous model is year 1 stayed about the same. Nothing really changed too much in year 1. It's kind of like the weather, that the first year projection is going to be pretty close, but then the years after that can fluctuate more based upon what you changed in the assumptions. So 24, 25 through 27, 28 did get worse in the numbers. Again, if you pull out one of the sheets from the previous and compare it to this sheet. We also did lose more students in the September count. So again, versus the numbers that were used in the survey from the July assumptions of the sheet, again, it's gotten worse. Because of hold harmless factors in the revenue limit formula didn't affect 23-24 as much. Again, it affects the years going forward though because of that enrollment loss. Equalization aid, I mentioned that we, in the forecasting model workshop, went through and adjusted state equalization aids. It's 1 year more accurate. that led to more favorable mill rates in the model. So that is updated all on page 8. On page 9, again, October locked in your revenue limit formula, your levies. So we have another year of data here locked in, and I apologize, it does get so small. I think it's a 1.6 negative revenue limit decrease that we had. We're projecting a -4 next year again, which is why we're heading to referendum, which we knew was on the horizon. Why we tried previously, because of these bad revenue years. One thing I did notice is if you look at the bottom left corner where the graphs come up visually, like you can see that revenue decline happening this year and then projected again to continue declining. So the revenues graph is definitely telling. Let's see, what else should I tell you? Page 7, if I back up a page, there are some new estimates for some, again, we don't know if we're going to referendum, and if we are, how much. But one of the things I do in the Bear forecasting model is try to figure out, hey, if we were going to solve all the years of deficits, and sometimes we talk a 5-year solution of deficits, we went to survey on a 3-year solution of deficits. What would that look like? That's the first sample 1 sitting here now, the scenario with 3.678 mil. So you could do a 3-year, does that still say 5-year? Sorry. We decided on the survey to only go 3-year, and I didn't change that to say 3-year. So a 3-year referendum, and again, numbers are different, numbers are new, they're gonna keep changing, really up until you set the levy come next October. But we have $1.71 for 3.7 mil right now. And then right below it, which I should label sample 2, we have a scenario now with 3 million, that we did survey 3 million, and that would cost $1.40. So I know again in the survey it said $1.67. So again, the numbers are a little lower because equalization aid is a little bit better. But, you know, still I don't think anything significantly different to sway like the survey results. I think if someone voted no at $1.60, they're gonna vote no at $1.40, that kind of thing. Maybe not, but you know, in general, I'm not sure that that has the ultimate weight that it, you know, for pennies. So that's just an update on the newest 23-24 figures. Any questions or things we'd like to see different there?
No, that's good information for next week's meeting. That'll help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Fund 46 establishment.
This is B as well. It starts on page 10. On page 10 is a summary of Fund 46, and then a recommendation down at the bottom if you decide that you want to go ahead with this today. If you do go ahead with this today, the investment is $100. And what it is, you know, we have Fund 10, we have Fund 27, we have Fund 21, 38, 39. There's these different funds in school government accounting, and they mean different things. Fund 50 means food service account. Fund 80 means community account. Fund 46 would be an account that we begin to establish capital improvement reserves, maintenance reserves, things for Andy's building and grounds budget long term, okay? Why haven't we established it before? Is because when I got here 13 years ago, fund balance was down to single digits, and the board at that time, with my recommendation, the first thing was we have to get out of short-term borrowing to meet cash flow needs. So there wasn't money to set aside for capital improvements and maintenance projects. Again, we were trying to purposely go from 5 million of short-term borrowing, which costs interest, and in particularly bad interest years, we had $200,000 of interest costs. Well, now you as a board are down to, if you remember in September, 1 million of short-term borrowing, okay? So you've really done a great job of bringing that financial need in check, okay? And someday, maybe we will be out of short-term borrowing completely for cash flow. Well, the little, I guess, nuance of Fund 46 is when you put money in it, the state law rule is you can't touch it for 5 years. You have to put money into this account, and then it's like locked in a trust, and the time starts ticking for 5 years. So if we put $100 in it right now, the time frame starts ticking right now, and maybe 5 years from now, we would be able to fund some money into this account, and then we wouldn't have to wait 5 years to use it. Okay? So that's, again, like I've always had in my head, like, well, first we have to get to the point of reducing short-term borrowing and then eliminating short-term borrowing, and then possibly we can do this. Now, I further argue with myself because you could just put money into fund balance at the end of the year. You know, like this last year, don't quote me on the number, I don't even remember anymore because everything's a blur, but let's say we ended the year with $400,000. Andy used it for middle school HVAC over the summer, right? So do we really have to put it aside into a trust? Do we really have to put it aside into a different fund when we're going to use money for maintenance? The answer is no. You can just keep doing, again, what we're doing, that if we have some money at the end of the year, goes into fund balance, then you can make a larger fund balance purchase, right? The benefit is, again, these little hoops and loops of different funds. So I use the word hold harmless sometimes. There's hold harmlesses built into formulas for revenue limits. There's also hold harmlesses built into state aid formulas. And in a state aid formula year, the worst you can lose is 15%, okay? So there's some years where we might be butting up against that hold harmless, and then if we spent more, and the way these funds work is the spend is when you make the deposit, okay? That's when the expense is written on the books. If I saw that we were gonna be in a hold harmless year, because the more we spend, the more state aid we lose, because we're what's called a negative tertiary aided school district. But if we were already bumping up against the hold harmless, that's the year for us then to make the deposit into a maintenance account, and we won't lose more aid that year then. So if we were already at the hold harmless, and let's say we were having a great year with utility savings and snow plowing didn't occur, and this part's not great, but we had 3 unfilled positions, and this next financial report, because I was working on it today, you're going to see we had HRA forfeited funds over the summer. So if we had $500,000 and I didn't want to lose the aid on it, then that's what we could do. We could apply it at that particular time. So it gives us another vehicle for managing funds in the best appropriate way, is what I'm saying there. So it lets us keep more state aid. That would be one reason to, again, jump through kind of hoops and loops and do it a little differently than just putting it in a fund balance and taking it out of fund balance.
Okay.
Okay, so other questions? And
So-
again, it is, once you put the money in there, you can only use it on maintenance-related items, but we all know Andy has a long list. And the other thing that has to get approved, and it's the way the resolution is written, it has to be an item on the maintenance list. So if we wanted solar panels and they weren't on the maintenance list, then we'd have to say no, and we'd have to redo our maintenance plan before any of that would get approved, okay?
And that 5-year time period is just upfront? It's-
Upfront, yes.
After that, it doesn't matter?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's just literally putting in about $100 to start it.
Yep, so it would be, we'd put in $100 to start it, the clock starts ticking now, and then you have an open Fund 46. And then there's no plans to add any more money to it. Again, that's why we're talking this referendum talk, is because we don't have extra dollars laying around to do the roofs and the asphalt. We'd be asking the voters for it.
At least allows the 5-year plan to start, the 5-year to start.
Yes.
It's kind of a silly rule. Why do they do the 5 years?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
There's another Fund 41. If you look at that, that one has a little different logistics. That one, you have to, it would be part of our annual meeting, and we'd have to levy an amount into it. So they just set up these different funds with these different, like, rules and different procedures around them.
Okay.
What happens to that money while it's sitting there?
What happens to the money while it's
Is it
sitting there?
is there some interest rate or some sort of investment that it goes into?
Yeah, good question. So we don't invest in anything risky that could lose funds.
Right.
Okay? So right now, all that we have is liquid accounts, because again, we have to short-term borrow. So like there's 2 points in time during the year where our bank account is literally down to 0, and then we have the money that we've short-term borrowed. So with $100 sitting in there, it's not going to be a big deal.
Right.
At some point, if you get more money in there, if you were locking it for a certain amount of time, then you could develop an investment policy and look at some more aggressive investments. But an auditor once told me, again, a government entity like we are, funded by taxpayer dollars, you don't want to go into investments that are at risk of losing any funds. So we have to have that guaranteed.
Yeah. I was thinking savings accounts now for people like an
Yep.
individual, you get rates that are starting to be worth putting some money in, but I didn't know how that worked for
I
a
was really
government entity
happy.
like
We're
us.
over 3% in our bank account right now,
Okay.
in our liquid checking account.
And so the 10-year plan, what does that look like? Is that a formal thing, or is it
I would
like
think
what
it's
Andy's already
PSI's
put
plan
together?
now, yeah.
That's what's in
Like,
here.
seems
Yeah.
like we already have that, right?
Right.
Okay, so there's not a whole
Yeah,
lot.
so we attached that. Andy did a great job on it. It starts on page 17. So it's basically what PSI did, and then Andy is meeting with Dale and Steve in that subcommittee, operational subcommittee, and then they're tweaking it, and he added some years. It's so nebulous. Like, they had requirements about, this is what needs to be in your maintenance plan. And like, one of the things was a timeline when these things might get done. Well, again, if you don't have the money, these things aren't going to get done in
Right.
those years.
Okay.
So, yeah. Andy wants to say something? But while he's walking up there, it starts on page 17, the 10-year plan. That would be part of the approval tonight. And as what I'm going to say, it's going to be constantly changing, just like, again, budgets are constantly moving.
So just as you guys look at that, you'll see that column that we added with dates. So I just kind of used some of the information that Steve and Dale and I had discussions with in the operational subcommittees. So in that improvement list that, from PSI's facility study, there's projects that were super low on there for us. So I just looked at it like a 25-year situation. So it's supposed to be a 10-year plan, but really, do I see the district in a situation, unless there's some government funding to put solar panels on the roofs? I don't think we're going to be there in 25 years. So I put a date that maybe we would do that in 2050. The nice thing is that obviously we're not held to this. It's not like we have to just have the money and magically be able to get these projects done. We don't have to do that. So again, I was basically, the lower the priority, the further out into the future I put that. The higher the priority, the closer in the future I put that. And then I want to say this as well. So when we sometimes have those positive variances, and I'm told in May, hey, do you have any projects? Yeah, I'll always have projects, but how well can I bid those out? How competitive are we? So if we had positive variance in year 5 of this, and we were able to put that into Fund 46, I don't have to do it before June 30th then. Now that money can go into that Fund 46, and then I can take my time and be a little bit more methodical with bidding that process out, and not having to really push vendors to get supplies or like windows or roofing materials. It's just, we'll be able to slow that process down and be able to just be, I think, better stewards with our money. We're being as good a stewards as we can be right now, but that just gives us another vehicle, like Kathy said it, to even do a little bit better job. So, does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Okay.
I make a motion to approve the long-term capital improvement plan, the establishment of Fund 46, and the initial funding as presented.
A second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Kathy, people can certainly make donations into that fund, correct?
Sorry, Steve. Can you say that again?
I said people could make donations specific to that fund?
Yes, because how the funds are initiated in Fund 46 is a transfer. So, yeah, I would receipt the donation and then we transfer it into Fund 46.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, approval of donations.
Yeah, there's quite a few, which is great. So I'll just review them quickly, and if the board has any questions, we'd like to thank Mr. Mike Ludrap, who just donated 2 clarinets to our East Troy High School Bands Department. The donation is valued at $800. Second one is from the organization of True North. During the months of August, September, and October of 2022, True North launched the Giving Pump as part of its initiatives to drive positive change in local communities by giving back. True North is proud to enclose a donation check of $511.20 per the Giving Pump. Another donation came forth from Fred and Martha Bressler, as they were kind enough to donate $100 to the East Troy High School Choir Department. We had an anonymous donor provide a donation of $9,000 to the East Troy Community School District, which will be deposited to our Economic Assistance Fund for use with Battle of the Bags as requested. We had East Troy Lumber Company, Mr. Steve Lamberts, with a donation of $400 to our East Troy High School Tech Ed program. And we had another anonymous donation in regards to our English department at our high school, asking for our high school department to purchase additional books for the Reader's Workshop collection. The donation was of $1,000 for that request.
Great.
Make a motion to approve all of the donations.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All right, all in favor of approval, say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consideration of impact needs for the 22-23 school year.
Yeah, so we're going to table this discussion due to the fact it was brought up at the last school board meeting. We met in regards to these impact needs, but we felt, the administration team of supervisors felt that we needed more time to continue to review our impact needs and collect data to share with the school board in regards to that. So we're going to table that discussion until January.
Okay.
May I make a motion?
Yeah, should.
I'll make a motion to table item H, consideration of impact needs for 22-23 school year.
Okay, discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, or that item is tabled.
Huh?
It wasn't in the packet.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the packet. Do you have one with it? I didn't receive it. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I didn't receive the formal. Okay, let's do that if we're all right, yeah.
Okay,
But
next.
thanks, Stace. I'll follow up on that.
Review of district and school report cards.
Thank you, Justin. appreciate it. Yes, thank you. We began this conversation at the November meeting. If you remember, the report cards for the 21-22 school year were released the day after the November meeting. And so we spent a little time at the November meeting going over the report card and its components and how things are figured. And so today we have the actual report cards for 21-22 that we will share with you. So I will begin with the district report card, and then the principals are going to take turns discussing about the report cards at their specific buildings. I think what's important to remember is also at last meeting, we reviewed the action steps that we have put into place. Those stemmed from the report card results for last year. So right now we're talking about the 21-22 school year. When we got the 2021 report cards, we dug into that data and identified some needs as they related to curriculum, to planning, to scope and sequence, to professional development. We added reading intervention and math intervention at the middle school. We added an additional reading interventionists at elementary. We addressed the turnover we've seen in the math department, and we addressed that through professional learning regarding the CPM curriculum. We added a special education teacher at the middle school to address our class sizes, but it's important to remember that when looking at these, all of those things that I just talked about were implemented this summer. And so the data that you're going to see is not impacted by those action steps that we have taken thus far. So we can start by digging in. It begins on page 38 in your packet, and we'll start with the district. What's important to remember about the district is it is not an average of the schools. Rather, the state treats the district as one large school. Okay, it looks at it just as one big school. And so you'll see at the top the demographic information related to students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and our English learners. The economically disadvantaged is an important percentage because the way the weighting happens for our priority areas depends on that number. Then there's a score summary. So the district score summary for 21-22 was 68.8, meeting expectations. It was a little drop from the year before of 70.6. It is not a percentage, rather it is a score from the weighted average of the priority areas. So there are 4 priority areas: achievement, growth, target groups, and on track to graduation, and we'll talk about each of those in turn. What's also important to remember is the weights for each priority area changes every year. So that depends on the number of economically disadvantaged students that we have. So if we have greater number of economically disadvantaged students, our growth area is weighted higher. So like, for example, last year we had 25.7% economically disadvantaged, and so our growth area was a little higher weight last year of 18.8. So consider that because the weights are not the same year to year. That's an important thing to remember as well. When we look at the priority area scores, achievement is first. Achievement digs into performance on the state assessments, so Wisconsin Forward, Aspire, and ACT from 3rd through 11th grade, only focusing on math and ELA. We really kind of held steady from the year before, so we were at 64.3 was our score, and it's a 3-year average. So it is not just how our students did last year. We're considering 3 years in total. So however we performed 2 years ago is still in our formula for that. Last year, we were at 64.7. This year, we are at 64.3. We were above the state average in both ELA and mathematics. Growth is the next priority area, and that addresses the change in performance that we see with students over time. So it compares how they did the prior year to the current year, and that is also 3 years worth of data. We did drop in that area. So we were at 67.9, we did drop to 62.2. And trying to figure out, we've been thinking a lot about, spending a lot of time on why are we not seeing that growth. So we have implemented lots of things surrounding that. First and foremost, we start with our universal instruction. So the universal instruction that all of our students are receiving, is it aligned to the state standards that are being tested, and are we at the appropriate level of rigor? So we have been digging into that. Most notably, we have really spent a good time K-8 working on that in the area of ELA. Our district literacy specialist developed a scope and sequence to ensure that our rigor was where it needed to be at each grade level, and over the summer, all of our ELA teachers were trained in that. In addition to addressing the universal instruction, we've been identifying increased needs in intervention, which we've talked about. So we've added an elementary interventionist in the area of reading. She began with us this year. We have designated a consistent interventionist for math at the middle school, and we've added a reading interventionist at the middle school. That will allow us to identify students who are not at grade level and to try to work to fill those gaps in addition to the universal instruction. The next part is target group outcomes. So at the building level, what the state does is it identifies your bottom quartile. So it'll identify the bottom 25% of students, and that's a performance base. So the bottom 25% from the Wisconsin forward for the year prior. At the district, it takes all of those lists. So it doesn't take the bottom 25% of the district, it takes the bottom 25% from Prairie View, the bottom 25% from middle school and high school. And this has been an area that we've also been looking at, identifying the students that are in that target group. So each building was provided with the lists of those students. We've been incorporating that into our conversations regarding data, so our data retreats. We've been ensuring that these are the students that are also identified for intervention so that we can ensure that we are serving the needs that exist. And we've also identified the standards that our students are not performing well on. So the state gives us some information. We did some deep data dives this year to identify standards that, one, we were really strong in, and then on the flip side, two, that our students have not yet mastered. And then On Track to Graduation measures milestones that would lead to post-secondary success. So we look at chronic absenteeism, graduation rates. The district incorporates both the third grade ELA test and the 8th grade math test. So Target Group and On Track are both receiving a weight of 25%. At Mark's building, his On Track will include the third grade only. At middle school, it's 8th grade only. At high school, that is weighted at 20% because they don't have a measurement of 3rd or 8th grade. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So as, oh yeah, go ahead, Dale. I'm sorry.
These interventionists,
Mm-hmm.
do other schools do the same thing?
Yes.
They do.
Yes. We're just catching up to other schools in the interventionist roles. So the subsequent pages then break down those 4 categories that I talked about. So they'll identify, so for example, on page 3, it will dig into achievement, and it goes as far as identifying whether specific subgroups performed better or worse last year in ELA and math. We use that information to make sure that we're serving all students. We've really focused on the students with disabilities. In years prior, we had seen that they weren't growing as we had hoped and were not achieving as we had hoped, but you'll notice in ELA, we had an increase in their performance and a very minor decrease in mathematics. So we're looking at that to make decisions on how we're serving students and how we're meeting their needs. And then another notable component to the district report card can be found on page 9. And this is post-secondary preparation. So it's page 9 of the report card. I should clarify that. So this information is not factored into our score. It is just for information. So the first part talks about the number of our students that are taking advanced courses. So we have 27.8% that are taking advanced courses compared to 19.9% from the state average. Dual enrollment, 62.8% compared to the state average of 18.6%. Industry recognized credentials, we have 12.9% compared to the state average of 2.8%, and then work-based learning is 5.5% compared to state average of 3.4%. Stacy will get into some of that in her presentation. I just wanted to make you aware that we do really, really well in those areas, and they just don't impact the report card. They're just not factored in as part of the scores. And then the last page is high school data only, and it provides information about the number of students that participate in arts courses. And so we have 23.6% of students in 9th through 12th grade that take part in an art or design course. That is in comparison to 23% at the state. We do not offer dance, and we do not offer theater as a class. We offer it as an extracurricular, but we do have music, and 14.7% of our students are taking that compared to 18.3% at the state.
So this is, I want to make a comment here.
Yep.
This, what you have on page 9, that's the type of information we need to get out.
Yep.
I mean, you're looking, comparing it to state, 27.8, 19.9. Dual enrollment, 62.8 to 18.6. Industrial recognized credentials, 12.9 to 2.8. I mean, work-based learning, 5.5 to 3.4. I mean, those numbers are astronomical. So those are type of things that need to get out so that people recognize and that other people in the community and outside the community know about and be attracted to this district. It's just a point I want to make out. If it wasn't for this meeting tonight, I would have no idea about it. You know, so I think in our part of our discussions, we need to talk about these things.
Any other comments or questions about the district report card? Okay.
I couldn't agree with Dale more on that part. I know I talked a lot about this when I was campaigning to run for school board, because this is the kind of thing where everybody sees the top line of the report card, you maybe read through a few pages. This is page 9.
Right.
To me, this is almost more important than some of those, milestone scores along the way, because these are directly tied to results and the end product that the students experience. They're going out and getting these extra credits, getting actual work, hands-on job experience. And apparently the rest of the state isn't doing that to the level that we are, not even close. So I agree with Dale. This needs to be really put out there. This is the value that the taxpayers' dollar bring to educating the children of our community.
Absolutely.
This is a direct
and this is
result.
the direction we're going with the additional classes that we have. So this is the future, right here. This line is the future of this district, right there.
Okay. Yes, we will move on to Little Prairie, their story is a little different because they do not have students that take the Wisconsin Forward. So Lindsay will fill you in on that.
Yes, so everything Amy just said about those 4 priority areas does not exist on the Little Prairie report card. So if you actually look at our school report card, the amount of information on it is really very minimal. The demographic information, percentage of economically disadvantaged, percentage of students with disabilities, but that's really the bulk of the information that's on there. The process that Little Prairie has to engage in, the state calls the alternate accountability process. And so what that entails is in the summer months, I am asked to complete really a form that gets submitted to the state, and there are 3 parts to that form. We have to identify a goal in the area of English language arts, math, and school attendance, and then report out the outcomes of each of those goals. And so I will share with you what our goal was in each of those areas and then what the results were. So I'll start with attendance because that one's pretty black and white. So generally in any given year, our goal is always to have a 95% attendance rate. The last 2 years, that's looked a little bit different because even last year we were still sort of living in that COVID world of excluding kids from school for certain reasons. And so our goal last year was a 90% attendance rate. And we exceeded that goal. We were at a 92%. So I'm hoping this year now we'll be back in that world of 95 or above now that we're sort of out of the weeds, I hope, although there's a lot of sick people right now, but in terms of kind of excluding kids from school for the number of days that we were in the past. In terms of English language arts, and now these goals we set for our kindergarten through 2nd grade population, but sometimes there are a couple pieces to that because what things look like in kindergarten is kind of its own little beast. So sometimes what things look like in kindergarten is a little different in terms of how we measure things. But as far as ELA goes, our goal is that 80% of our 1st and 2nd graders will show a year or more of growth. So we have specific measures that we use to kind of track what constitutes a year of growth in the area of reading. And that 80% mark is really chosen because universally schools should expect that about 80% of your kids are responding to the instruction that you provide, and 20% likely need something in addition. So we exceeded that goal in that 90% of our 1st graders showed that year or more of growth, and 89% of our 2nd graders. Kindergarten looks a little different because they're really coming in at what you'd consider a baseline. They're just starting their school experience. So rather than determining a year of growth in kindergarten, we set a goal for grade level achievement by the end of the year. Last year, we were really still experiencing kind of much of the residual effects, I would say, of COVID regarding kids that age, because we still had much larger percentages of kindergartners who had no school experience prior to kindergarten. We always have a handful or a couple handfuls of kindergartners who haven't attended school before because school's not required. But during that COVID stretch, it was higher than we had historically experienced. So while I talked about how we would typically expect 80% of our kids to respond to our instruction, we set that end of year kindergarten goal just a little bit lower, knowing we were still sort of digging out from that COVID hole, if you will. And so our hope was that 65% of our kindergartners would meet those spring grade level expectations, and we met that goal, and that 68% of them got there. So this year, we'll kind of refocus ourselves to get closer to that 80% mark. In math, we've talked about that 80% number, so at least 80% of our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade students will score at or above the 25th percentile in math according to the spring grade level FAST math assessments. It's a mouthful. So our FAST assessments are the kind of district assessment that we've committed to measure our kids' early learning skills in math. There's a series of subtests that happen at different grade levels. The 25th percentile or better is the mark that we've chosen because that's the point at which we provide kids extra if they're not meeting it. So anywhere above the 25th percentile, they're kind of off and running with regular classroom instruction. Below that, we provide them some additional intervention, excuse me. So our goal was that 80% of our kids hit that mark or better. We exceeded that goal in that 82% of our kindergarten students met that mark, 83% of our first grade students, 80% of our second grade students. Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Okay, here to present about Prairie View, grades 3, 4, 5. Starting with a bigger picture here, and then just drilling down. Overall score this year was a 76.3. Last year was 81.1, but over the course of the last several years, Prairie View has bounced around from like mid-70s, low 80s, like we've just kind of bounced around, just given different demographics from year to year. However, we also continue to fall within that exceeding expectations category. One of the things that I wanted to point out is, at least in my mind, and I think in the state's mind, achievement is really, really important. So achievement is really the end result or the goal, right? So our kids achieving. So at Prairie View this last year, almost a third of our weighted score was related to how our students are achieving. So that's a really critical variable that we spend quite a bit of time in within our school studying. I'm happy to say that I think our achievement category is a point of pride and things to celebrate, and also an area of focus for us. Year in and year out, we have continued to make some growth. Like for example, last year our ELA score was 71. This last year was 72.1. So some growth there. In math, again, a couple years ago, 84.9 in math. Now it's that 86.8. So we're continuing the upward trend. So one of the things that we do in order to support that achievement is many things, working with Amy on making sure that our curriculum and teaching practices are aligned to the standards. But we've also, and Lindsay's building and mine, worked on vertical meetings where we have conversations. So for example, getting second and third grade teachers together so that second grade teachers know that, hey, in third grade, students are going to be expected to write a 5-paragraph essay. And so how do already in second grade, teachers are starting to foreshadow those expectations. Then fourth meets with fifth, and so on and so on. So we're doing a lot of conversations in order to support that achievement and learning from each other about what's working and maybe not working so much. Our participation rate always remains very strong at about 99.7%. The other thing, when you start to really drill down a little bit further in achievement, one of the things that you would notice is that our special education scores, so those students that are identified having an IEP, identified with a disability, they, over the course of the last couple of years, have really made some nice gains and nice growth as well, too. I would attribute a portion of that, like not only to our hardworking teachers, but also some really collaborative practices. Years and years ago, if you had a child with a disability, it was likely that your child was pulled out to receive separate math or separate reading in a room in a small group. We've really flipped the script over the course of the last couple of years, making sure that all students are in the core subjects to the maximum extent possible with like a co-serving model. So there's a regular education teacher and a special education teacher in that classroom setting. So students are in the room hearing and learning on-grade instruction with that partnership. And we feel like that's been a really successful approach. Again, not too long ago, Kate Harder, like a couple years ago, pointed out like that was an area of weakness for our district. And I think this last year we have certainly rectified that. Growth category, this is an area that we saw like a drop in our score. It accounts for about 18% of our total score. We went from 76.5 last year to 64.1. One of the ways that I guess I understand it or describe it is, I mean, if the goal is for you to be here and your achievement is here, there's not that much room for like growth, right? But if the goal is here and your achievement is here, the state really rewards any upward or rising motion, and that's what's attributed within that growth category. Growth is also really sensitive to your demographics, so especially your rates of special education population, economically disadvantaged, as Amy had said, English language learners, as well as ethnicity. Just speaking from personal experience, I've worked in different districts, worked in different schools. One of my schools had a 10% economically disadvantaged. Another one had 70%. Ours has 25%. And how the weighting of that, statistically, how they use that to help reward schools that maybe have some greater disadvantages or challenges. The target group outcomes, as Amy pointed out too, this focuses again on our 25% from year cohort and how they performed. Again, that pace of growth has slowed, but in that 25% of our lowest performing, their achievement scores continue to grow. So more and more kids are reaching grade level expectations. Amy foreshadowed as well too, at the beginning of the year, she gave us the list. I mean, she gave us the list of names of the individuals that scored at that below basic or basic. And then we were able to study that as teachers and figure out, okay, what are we going to do in order to support those individuals? So not only could we see how they were doing, but also plan for their instruction in a more solid way. On track to graduation, another weighted area. I would say that was pretty much a wash from last year to this year. We are at 90.3, this year 89.9. Lindsay had mentioned too about attendance. I mean, now that we're post-COVID, we are having probably, I would say, more aggressive talks with some of our families about your child needs to be in school. Like we certainly were understanding of COVID and students being out or families being out, but this year, even starting in August, some of our families that we knew had a historical issue related with consistent attendance, we were meeting with those individuals and planning with those individuals and families before the school year even started. One other comments that I would make is, so this is one data point, like this is a really important data point, but what other data do we have? We do quite a bit of testing at Fontes and Pinnell, our reading tests, our MAP testing. Our other data would suggest really strong scores as well too. So for example, in 5th grade, 84% of our students are at grade level in reading, 84% are at grade level or above in math. In 4th grade, 81% are at above grade level in reading, 85% in math. And in 3rd grade, 74% are above grade level in reading and 77% in math. So we take all of that information and we develop all of our own school learning objectives. Like what is our goal for our school? What our goals do we set? This year at Prairie View, we're really focusing on our fluency, so the rate and speed and accuracy of how we read material is going to be a focus in the reading area, and then math is the fact fluency. I think I shared that more with you about that in the past. So I've shared a little bit of celebrations. I'm going to share one comment about concerns. This year, We turned over a third in my building of our core reading and math teachers this year. So a third of my staff of those homeroom teachers are new that are teaching reading and math. I'm just going to say that it's hard to just jump in without knowing the curriculum. So it's likely we may see a dip, or at least not, hopefully just a plateauing to account for the teacher's learning curve. I know that Amy and the rest of the team are working really hard for professional development opportunities for those individuals. Our school teams are surrounding them with assistance as well. We have great hires, so I'm not saying anything about our teachers not being strong hires, but it takes time to replace a veteran teacher's professional knowledge and skill. So that's why I think it's really, really critical about making sure it's the power of the people and the power of the individuals that are providing this curriculum. That's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, I'm going to make one comment on that before. I think you're doing a great job, by the way. I'm going to say that for you. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a couple of weeks ago when we introduced these classes with PLCs, VFD drives, servo motors, robotics, Ethernet IP, we couldn't even talk about those things if it wasn't started years ago when they were that little. And to bring them the total picture up to that, you've got to start very young. So I realize that you're not recognized as a high school type achievement, but it's not possible without you starting them early enough to build that knowledge as you go through and even bring the students to the point where any industry would take an East Troy graduate with those type of skills and hire them in a heartbeat. There's no doubt about that. And that's only possible because of the foundation that's been set.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, obviously that starts at Little Prairie, already in kindergarten. I mean, we are a very, very unique district across the nation that starts that experience in kindergarten.
And that is something that we need to get out there so people to understand that this, I understand it, but everybody needs to understand this. And because I realize how complicated these subjects are by the time they're juniors and seniors in high school. Not possible unless you start them out young.
Right. And I mean, you are welcome. I'd welcome others to come in and watch. I mean, our students already in 3rd and 4th grade are involved in the engineering design process. They are, I mean, they're really doing the scientific method, but they're also deep into some of those really critical thinking skills that certainly with strong math supports that, right? But it gives them the aptitude and the interest and the passion to pursue what we believe are the necessary employability skills in the future.
Exactly.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do I get bonus points for saying a couple C's there,
Yeah,
Dr.
right. Dale, I just wanted to say I couldn't agree with you more. I think these report cards really, right, it's like we're looking at our schools in silos, but I think it's super important to recognize that we are an organization of 4K through 12. And so it's just like at graduation when our elementary teachers show up to celebrate it too, right? We all play a role in that end outcome that happens when they're crossing the stage at 12th grade.
Hey, good evening. I'm here to present on the middle school, and obviously looking at the numbers, we know they're not where we want them to be, right? But like Dale and Amy just talked about, it's a very small glimpse into what we do at the middle school, reflecting very highly on forward test scores, which is obviously something we're working on. But as we go through this, just keep in mind, like, it's a glimpse, right? It's a snapshot in time of these students being assessed one time in March, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So our breakdown in the priority areas, achievement, we were at 53, which is slightly below state average in math, and 52.8 compared to 60.1 in English. Growth, we were at 29.9. As we go through this, you'll see ELA is probably our biggest area of weakness throughout this report. But I also talked about some things that Amy had already mentioned that we have put in place for this year, but not reflective on this report card at all. For target group outcomes, achievement, or overall we were 29.1, achievement was 10.3, growth 31.8. Those are, in my opinion, two big areas we need to focus on. And then on track to graduation, for the most part, our kids are coming to school and they're taking the exams. Our biggest hit on that one would be the 8th grade math test, which we are below state average for that. So that's where we get a little bit of dip on the on track to graduation. In terms of achievement, just kind of highlight some areas for you. ELA, again, our biggest hit and biggest area of concern. The Hispanic or Latino group was down 13.6. Students with disabilities was down 7.1. 35.4% of students scored below basic in ELA. Keep that number in mind because I am going to bring up some map data that suggests that's not a true reflection of where our students are at. And there's a pretty big discrepancy there. Okay, and then 30.4% of students scored proficient or advanced. So we do have a top third that are doing very well. A lot of our report card is bringing up that bottom target group. For math achievement, 2 of 4 student groups went up. So we are seeing some upward movement in our math. Not huge, but it's moving up. So it's going in the right direction, which I think is good. White students scored 58.7, up 3.6. Economically disadvantaged students actually went up 1.7, and that is in terms of our targeted groups. They have typically been a little bit lower, so it's good that they are trending upward in math. The 2 areas that decreased are Hispanic or Latino students, down 4.6, and students with disabilities, down 2.4. Again, students with disabilities are going to be a big part of our target group and how we can better serve them. I know Mark was talking about our co-serving model. That is something we are also doing as well. So we're putting those students into the classroom in their core areas. Couple things go into that is it's a partnership, and we have a lot of new partnerships this year. They're all new special ed teachers, some new regular ed teachers. So that takes time. You can't just kind of make that happen overnight. Also due to low staffing, prep time for that is limited in a lot of those partnerships. So they are spending time out of the classroom or during different prep times to try to co-plan because you can't co-serve if you can't co-plan together. So that's also an area that we are working on. Student group performances compared to state averages. ELA was definitely below state averages there. And math, again, was trending upward in achievement. So seeing some trends, ELA, biggest area of concern, math scores, again, slightly going in the right direction there. If you look at student group performance levels by years, I would say our biggest area of concern is students with disabilities, like I just talked about. 88.9% were below basic in that area. Overall, all students, we are at 35.4% below basic for that. In mathematics, again, students with disabilities, 86.1% were below basic. So really getting that group up into the basic category would do a lot for our score and a lot for those students in general. So we are really making that a big focus in the middle school, is getting those students with disabilities the support they need. But again, a big turnaround in the special ed department, big turnaround in the ELA department. It takes time. All right, for growth here, if you look at page 4 of the report card, that's where you're going to see a big difference in ELA versus math. Overall, the priority score was 29.9. English, language arts was at a 20.4. Math was at 39.4. So pretty big discrepancy there. And then if you look at student group value added in terms of the specific groups and what growth they showed, we are well below the average in almost every category. So we know there are areas that we need to work on, but there's also a big discrepancy between ELA and math. Math is about a point higher in almost every category. Looking at all students, ELA growth was 0.6, math was 1.6, and that's pretty reflective down the board. Most math growth scores were between 1.4 and 1.7, so around that average. ELA growth scores were between 0.3, that's our students with disabilities, so they definitely need to have some more growth, and we need to support them in doing that. Economically disadvantaged was 0.2, so another targeted group that we need to better support in that in the ELA. Our highest in that area is proficient. Students that were proficient last year showed a growth of 0.7, still well below the 0.3 average that we're, or the 3.0 average that we're looking for in that. Target group outcomes. One thing to kind of highlight for that, for our growth, in English language arts, we are at the state average essentially. We are, target group and non-target groups are the same. All right, so our target group is showing the same growth as our non-target group, which is good, but the problem is it's still a low score. 20.4 out of a 100-point scale is not where we want to see that. In mathematics, our target group is actually shown more growth than our non-target group, which is something, out of this whole report card is probably the only area that you'll see that in. Achievement-wise, target group is still well below the non-target group. In ELA, they are at 10.8 compared to 67.3, and in math, they're at 9.8 compared to 67.7. So a big discrepancy between our target groups and our non-target groups in terms of achievement. All right. On track to graduation, priority area score 84.3. Again, our students are coming to school and they're taking the exams. The hit was the math predictor score of 46.6, which is below the average of 52.5. So definitely that's an area of focus for the on track to graduation. In terms of other information that I'd like to show and share with you guys, I did put some map data on your tables. You should see a little handout. It's front and back, some graphs and pie charts. And why I wanted to share that with you is the forward data that we're getting, I don't think is a true reflection of what our students' abilities are. And just to give you an example, looking at the reading language arts, that's one of the sides of the sheet I gave you. So this is based on their MAP test in the fall of 21-22 school year. And they project out what their forward exam scores should be based on MAP test scores. So in terms of below basic students, their MAP test scores, there should be about 20% in ELA below basic. On forward, it came out to be 35.4. So that's that's 15 percentage points of discrepancy of why are they doing well on the MAP test, but not the forward exam. So in my opinion, it comes down to how can we make the forward exam more meaningful. And we've already talked with my staff and Sarah Eckert in terms of how that testing looks, in terms of how we actually administer the test, because testing fatigue is a real thing. If we just cram the forward test down in 2 days, they're just going to start bubbling in answers. So we're talked about spacing that out, pulling out certain groups to make it more conducive for testing, and just make a better testing environment as a whole. Going down the line, basic, projected to be 42.8, actual was 34.2. Proficient, projected 29.2, actual was 25.1, and advanced, projected 7.9, actual 5.3 in ELA. Math is the same thing. It's a little bit closer in math, and that's why our math scores showed better on forward and the report card. But below basic, projected 28.2, actual is 33.2. Basic 33.2, actual 29.8. Proficient 33.9, actual 29.8. And advanced was projected 4.7, actual 7.2. So math definitely trended higher in that area. They performed better, but there's still a big discrepancy in terms of what they showed us in the fall on map data and what they actually performed in the Ford exam. So that's going to be our focus this year in terms of getting ELA support, but also making that testing environment more conducive to support students. Any questions? Looks like you got one.
I'll maybe invite just a reflection from you.
Sure.
You're maybe 4-ish months in, right, to
Yep.
our district. And there is a large number of new staff in the middle school. I have one kid here for 1 hour of the day, but I haven't had an experience with the middle school staff since I went to school here, so it's been a little while.
Sure.
I know the middle school scores have been an area for improvement for a little while. They get a lot of attention from the community, and there's a lot more going on than just how we're scoring on this test, right? So I guess I just want to invite you to maybe tell us a little bit about how you think it's going, new staff settling in, right? We're all pulling with the staff here to see, obviously test scores are great, but there's a ton that's also important beyond just that, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right, there is a lot more to the middle school than just test scores. We showcased our music department. In terms of our new staff, I think they've been outstanding. Obviously, there's learning curves. We have a lot of first-year teachers that are learning the curriculum, learning how to manage a classroom, but I think we're seeing really good strides in those. Our veteran teachers that have been here are taking a lot of those new teachers under the wings and supporting them. I think the culture, from what I have been hearing from staff and people around the community, is that is improving. It's a process, and this, report cards are 3-year reflections, so it's not going to turn over overnight. But I think we have a strong staff, and it comes down to retention then, which I know we've talked a lot about, is hanging on to the good ones and making sure they are appreciated here. So.
And can we talk just for a second about the additional impact needs that were put in place? So you said it at the beginning. Can we just remind ourselves what's new in the middle school?
Get my list so I don't miss anything.
Adam,
One
while
moment.
Amy's looking at that, can you also hit on kind of what Adam and Dale had stated earlier, and that is, from the middle school's perspective, besides obviously students taking exams, that's very important. But I would argue that exams don't represent creativity with that. Right? They might represent critical thinking, but they don't represent creativity or curiosity. Definitely don't represent communication and collaboration, since again, you have to do it alone. Very important skills, I will tell you, of the real world that need to be done. So can you also hit on some of the programming and opportunities that are provided to the middle school students, and some of those that are probably not provided anywhere else, to be quite frank?
Yeah, I mean, our STEAM robotics programs obviously are top notch. We have students this weekend showing off some of their lights in the square, so that's a great opportunity to showcase what they're doing. The music program has been, the new members there have been fantastic. Our teacher has been fantastic. We just are adding a lot of things to it. The fact that we can go to the high school and get some of those electives is a big benefit to our students because it gets them advanced courses. We can push them in math if they need to. They can be exposed to tech ed and some of those courses ahead of time, and then they're ready for those high school courses when they get over there. So, yeah, there are a lot more things going on than just exams and taking that. So.
Okay, here you go. If we start with our universal instruction, this was a K-8 emphasis, but it really impacted the middle school because we do have some new ELA teachers, and so that was the work that our district literacy specialist did in mapping out the scope and sequence, and then summer of 2022, all of our ELA teachers were trained in that. As I'm visiting classrooms, I'm seeing it happen, the language, the vocabulary, the practices we've talked about. We've hired an additional reading interventionist specific to the middle school, so we currently have a reading interventionist that is funded through Title and partly through special education. So we had a lot of kids that were identified in need and one person, 0.5 actually, to serve that person, so we have added an additional reading interventionist at the middle school. We have addressed the ELA delivery. So in years past, we did a co-teaching model, and we had 2 teachers that were in a classroom with 2 full classes. And with the turnover that we've been having in ELA, co-teaching relationships are very difficult when they're forced. And so we saw a decline in that, so we got rid of that. We went back to the single classroom. They still work very much as a team and use the reader's workshop, the workshop model, but we have 1 teacher now with their class. In the area of mathematics, we reorganized that math department to increase FTEs by 0.5. So we took a 0.5 from the high school, brought it over to the middle school, which allowed us to address the class size at the middle school. Within the last 3 years, our middle school math department has completely turned over more than 1 time. So to address that change, all of our middle school math teachers went through the CPM Foundations for Implementation training this summer, and as part of that, they're also working with a professional learning specialist from CPM who is a CPM teacher, but also visits to give specific feedback as to the practices of CPM. We have a dedicated middle school math interventionist this year. In years past, we crossed our fingers that middle school would qualify for Title I, and that was where the interventionist came from. We recognized we couldn't do that anymore. We needed a dedicated interventionist, so we reconfigured our interventionist, and one now is a dedicated middle school math interventionist. And then we have incorporated the middle school in that vertical planning. So Mark had talked about the vertical teaming that's happening. So for example, our ELA teachers, 6th grade, just went to visit 5th grade. So they get an idea of the skills and the scope and sequence that's happening there, and it's great. We added an additional special education teacher at the middle school to assist with caseloads and to provide more assistance for those that require it. And then as part of our professional learning, if you remembered, we increased that budget from $2,000 to $50,000, and so we had 61 educators district-wide, many of them at the middle school, who engaged in curriculum planning and professional learning. And that's it, specific to the middle school. But I think what Adam said is it's really important to remember we have a lot of new staff here, right? And so we've invested, and we are continuing to invest in the development of that staff, and so retaining them will be key, because every time they leave, we are starting from 0 again.
I just want to add one thing on all this subject, is that's a tough age. You're in a tough age.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Agreed.
tough.
Agreed.
But, I don't know, it'd be probably that, the transition period to becoming, thinking on their own, saying, I remember my daughter when I was 14 or whatever said, Dad, you're dumb, but then you're 18. Boy, Dad, you sure got smart, But anyway, I don't know if you could, whatever it takes to spark the interest will make a huge difference on how they do in math, English, or whatever. Well, however you could spark that, make that spark, and I think at that juncture in their life, that's a critical part of the learning process. Just saying.
Yep. And I'll just finish, we have a great group of students at our middle school. We really do. And looking at MAP data just from this year, I think we're on an upward trend. I really do, so.
Dale, and one of the things on that too is we're really looking at it's called transition survey data. So kids coming from the Prairie View 5th grade into the middle school and throughout all the years of the middle school, because we want to look at every single year of the middle school. We've said that they're hard years, right?
Yeah.
A lot on adolescence. And then we're looking at the 8th grade to 9th grade transition and any new student at the high school that comes, because at any grade, when you're a new student, it's a transition. And so we're really looking at that. We're surveying kids early in the fall. And unlike our school perception survey on students at the end of the year, where we really look at that feedback from getting good feedback from our kids, but it's more general from a standpoint, we don't identify students. Our transition survey, we do have them fill out via their email, so we can immediately look at subgroups and individual kids, because we're trying to intervene and talk to those kids and assist. And Stacy and Adam, myself, met a couple weeks ago, and I think that data is going to be very useful in regards to intervening earlier with some of the students.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more thing. He mentioned the age thing, and it reminded me of when we were at the last student learning subcommittee, we were looking at, I think you call it, is it cohort? When you look at, it's the same kids through the years. You could see the scores for the middle school years, they would be consistently at a certain level and they would drop. And then when they got to high school, they would go back up. And that struck me because it's like, there's maybe a certain percentage of kids that at those ages they just stop caring for a little bit.
I think
you know?
that's part of it,
I
is
don't know.
buying into the tests and, trying your best on
But
those
they pop
tests.
right back up at high school, so I don't, to me, it's like, do they really not have that level of achievement, or is there something else going on? Because it would be pretty interesting to have a certain level drop and then have that be a legitimate educational experience.
And I think at the high school level, they do have the ACT, which has a little bit more weight to it. Might get some better results that way, but you're right, middle school is a tough year, for sure. Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
I think one of the things you would see off of that, Adam, too, and Amanda's going to hit on some of some data at the end of the night in regards to assistance on the social emotional component. I think in the middle school years, and the data demonstrates even at Walworth County level, with the youth risk behavior surveys and everything, YRBS, and that is the number of middle school students that are sad. Like, I think it was 3 out of every 10, right, that are experiencing excessive sadness, right, or have thought about self-harm in some way, one fashion or another. It's greater in those years than you see possibly in other years at other grade levels. So middle school has, I mean, as we all know, middle school it is very difficult age for a lot of kids as they're trying to identify and find themselves, to be quite frank. And having a support network and being within, from friendships to teachers to families, very, very critical years for kids. And I think you talk to many families, they would tell you the same thing, right? That they understand and recognize, and the research shows you that students make a lot of choices in those years, which can either lead to success and good choice making in high school, or they're already on the path of making some very improper choices.
Good evening. East Troy High School. I just wanted to point out on the top of our report card, and I believe it's on the top of each school's report card, is a little blurb, I'm going to call it, that speaks to what we each feel our report card is highlighting. So Mrs. Fospanchek and Teaching and Learning helped craft those, but I just think it's a nice resource when you're trying to explain this huge, long document that we've been, I think we've been going an hour here probably, that we've trying to explain. So just wanted to highlight that up at the top. So a little background knowledge about high school report cards. Our students test each year, so it's a little different than the other grade levels. So 9th grade, they take a test. The name has changed over the years. It's now going to be the pre-ACT, was the Aspire. So they take that in 9th and 10th, and then in 11th grade, they take the ACT. So that is the data that is compiled throughout our report. So for this school year, we scored a 79.9 on our report card. Last year, that's up from last year, we scored a 77.7, but similar to what Mark said, ours fluctuates a little bit too each year depending on the different cohorts that are coming through. We'll speak to achievement first. We'll just kind of follow the format that everyone has. If you look at, that's the back page. Our students are performing well. The thing that I really like to see is in the middle of that second page, English language arts and mathematics are the two subject areas, just like everybody else, that really factor in. If you can see, our ELA scores in those desegregated groups are up. So we're up in English language arts. So that's exciting. Our students are doing well and continuing to do better. So that's the whole idea. They're growing each year, so they're performing well, that whole attainment, but their growth is continuing as well. So that's an important fact. In mathematics, we are up in one area. One is neutral, and then one, students with disabilities. From last year, our data represents that we are down a little bit, but we've made some changes within our math co-teaching model and identifying kids a little earlier to ensure that they have supports. So we've used this data to make some modifications. On the bottom, one of the other ideals that I'd like to point out is that if you look at the advanced, so that blue category down on the bottom, do you see how our advanced numbers have went up this year? So that's important. That, to me, I always look at it by groups, and so our kids that are up on the top are growing too. Sometimes with growth, that's really hard to do. Those are your top kids that are continuing to grow and achieve. So that's an important data point, I believe. Moving on to growth, that's page 4. Again, English language arts. Look at our performance. You know, we are in the right quartile for this area. So our students are doing well, but look at the mean, if you will, is 3.0, and we're at about 4.2 to 4.5, give or take, in all of the categories across the board. Even in the top one is all students are growing at an average of 4.2. So all students are growing throughout those 3 years, no matter where they start. So that's I think that's pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we will move on to our targeted groups. This, as Mark said, was an area of focus for all of us. So those are our identified students. So our identified students have also shown a lot of growth while they are in high school. So regardless of what special needs they might have as a group, they are continuing to show growth as well. There's a lot of flipping. I should have taken the staple out. Sorry about that. On track for graduation. Again, we are above the state average and on track for graduation at 94.8%. So we feel like we have a good handle on our students and where they're at and ensuring that we support them to make progress towards graduation. Now, if you go to the back, it's the second to last page. This is the part that Amy highlighted at the beginning. I just wanted to point out that we shared this information last year. Actually, I think we were in the same building, same time of year. And so our numbers from last year are approximately the same. We did grow in the dual enrollment, and that is, Dale alluded to, those are the classes that we offer at East Troy High School that are dual credit. Our teachers are, I always say, adjunct professors for Gateway. That's how I explain that. So we have more classes, and that whole idea or concept is really gaining traction. So more kids are very interested in staying. Those courses also align to those industry recognized credentials. So we were at 5.1% last year. This year we're at 12.9%. Because if students take the sequence of those courses, depending on which department they're in, then they get that industry recognized credential. So that's been an area of focus for CTE, and students and parents want that. They want credentials. So that CNA lab, our first group just completed last week, and all 10 of those students, at max is at 10, so we were full. All 10 of those students received their nursing assistant credential. So those students, all 10 of them, 20 by the end of the year, will be in that cohort or strand for next year's report card. Work-based learning, I just wanted to highlight this because if people do these comparisons, I just wanted you guys to have the backstory on this. We actually went down in that area. So last year we were at 7.1 with approximately 40 students in work experience, and this year we were at 29. That is because students are choosing to stay in school to complete those industry credentials. So we have fewer students leaving. Some are choosing to go on the job, but some are choosing to stay in school and take additional coursework in their pathway. Do you have any questions for the high school?
How do the programs like Start College Now, Youth Apprenticeship, where are they in these for, or are they in these for, like the number of kids that are taking those and going through those programs?
So youth apprenticeship would be, because that's a credential, so any youth apprenticeship student would be in that industry recognized credential. What was your other question? What's your other?
Programs like Start College Now, is that dual enrollment? Or how do those fit into how those programs are counted in this?
No,
Am I asking this wrong?
dual enrollment is on campus.
Okay.
So if students leave to go, they're not part of this calculation. This is just kids that have completed a course on campus.
Yeah, that's a good question, Adam. They're not factored in because we are not responsible for that delivery. So they go either to a university or a tech school to take that. Now, it will impact us with the CNA, like Stacy said, because they're doing the CNA through Start College Now. So we'll have more industry recognized certifications by having more students be able to take it because it's on site and they don't have to worry about the transportation. But the other courses are not factored into that.
Okay.
Not when they leave. When they stay on site, they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, if it's like a, yes.
Seems
That
like
whole
they-
transcripted
Yeah,
credit course, I
yeah.
mean, that's what we call it. There's a lot
Yeah.
of verbiage, a lot of lingo.
Yeah.
But the transcripted credit courses are the courses that are taught on campus.
Well,
And
it's in-
if you look at our, and Amy can correct me if I'm wrong, if you look at our number of transcripted credit courses at East Troy compared to surrounding districts, we have more of them. I think off the top of
Yeah.
my head, it's like 20 or something. So that's why that number is at 62.8%. It's
So-
just opportunity.
Yeah, so to me, that seems like a positive that isn't even recorded on this.
Yeah, that's
you know,
what I said
having-
before.
offering that. Technically, it's not in our building. I just
Oh,
see
Start
it as
College
like,
Now.
that's another positive for our district that isn't even in this.
It is. I mean, in
form.
all transparency, that's
Yeah.
state law.
Right,
So any
yeah.
district
No, I'm
has
not
to do
faulting
that.
anyone. I'm just saying
Yeah.
for in the general public, there's another factor that, and maybe another communication we need to get out there, because I just assumed that they were factored into this, so I'm glad I know now.
Yeah, I agree, Adam. One of the things I do want to point out, unfunded mandate, right? So Start College Now, early college credit, I love it, want to offer it to all the kids, love it to take advantage of it. Totally an unfunded mandate that comes out of our general fund budget, right? Totally unfunded. So one could say to me, and I've had it said in the past, so that takes away from what you're providing on district from a standpoint of assisting students. Yes, yeah, it does. And I believe in all programming. I believe if we can't offer it, good for them to take advantage of it. It's required by the state. I'm going to say it for the record. I just want to see the state fund it.
Yeah. I agree.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm all supportive of it. I just want to see the state fund it.
Any other
right.
questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thanks, Stace.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on, okay. All right. 23-24 high school planning guide. Sorry, Stacy, gotta come back.
So
Oh,
Sarah.
Sarah's gonna do it.
Sarah Eckert. Sarah Eckert is our coordinator of secondary learning. She oversees this process as part of her role, and so she is going to take the lead on presenting the planning guide.
Yeah, so it kind of goes well with everything that we're talking about today with all of our programs and the courses that we offer, because the planning guide really is a tool for our students to help see all of these amazing opportunities that we have. And then it also provides a resource for our staff as well to help guide our students through the processes that often come into play with the different courses and opportunities that we have as well. I like to usually put a little update sheet in your packet, because sometimes I'm sure you read it cover to cover and you're like, this is awesome, this is amazing. But to highlight the things that are different from prior years, I must have just had this year on the brain, because I noticed it says 22, 20, 23 at the top for updates. It is indeed the updates for next school year, so it's actually 2023, 2024. But you probably caught that and were like, hey, this is the planning guide for next school year. So it's always kind of hard to think that way. All of the regular updates took place, so always go through, look at which classes are transcripted and make updates. We've talked about this before for Gateway transcripted. It's dependent upon the teacher, and they have to go through a process to get the course approved to be transcripted, and it's through Gateway, and it's Gateway's timelines, so those don't always align with our planning guide and scheduling, so we try our best to keep those as updated as possible. So some of those did change. For example, actually, I just found out our landscape design class, Gateway has changed their requirements, so, and actually the class, they're not going to offer it, so we aren't going to be able to offer that one for transcripted credit. So I try to update those as best we can, as well as certifications that are available. There is a certification that is not in your copy that I found out about recently in our tech ed department, so hopefully you're okay with me adding that. But there is a Snap-on Starlit Precision Measurement Instruments certification. A little bit of a mouthful, but our metals courses as well as our small power equipment courses in tech ed, students are actually able to get this certification, which is kind of exciting. Some other things that were just updated, general language. We've had some new staff come in and out, so just removing some of the contact information that was outdated. So the co-principal information was removed, updating for a new counselor that came in, as well as adding information about our dean of students and athletic director. So that's in there. And then we have this program called the Global Scholars Program. It has been in our district since 2016, 2017. So it is not a new program, but there's not a lot of information out there about it. Students kind of find out about it because they may take a world language program and they're kind of said, hey, we have this program, you're in a world language. Like, are you looking to take 4 years of a world language? And so it's like, let's start advertising this more so students know that it's available for them. And so I've added information on page 12 of the guide about that specific program. And what's nice about it is students that are in that program, they really get this experience to, they use that term, develop their global competency. And so it's really nice that it's laid out for them in the guide for that information. Just kind of a fun fact, we've had about 12 students that have completed the program and about 3 to 5 that we're anticipating may also complete it this year and get a certificate from DPI for that. So hopefully we'll get to grow that a little bit more as well. We also updated the information on page 10 that goes through some of our alternate learning pathways. We use that term pathways a lot. These are a variety of programs that we offer for students, understanding that not everybody learns in the same way. And so we've taken what our offerings are and tried to communicate a little bit more on what does that look like for our students. So what are these programs? So we have our East Troy Alternative Learning Program, our East Troy Career Institute program, as well as our East Troy High School Skills Academy. And so we've laid out some information on those so it's a little bit easier to see. The GPS program is also in that. That's the same. It hasn't changed in years past either. The other component that we added to it as well, last year, if you recall, we added all of these beautiful graphics for students that show all these pathways. So if you're interested in government and public administration, you know what you want to do, or just a general area you're interested in, students can look at it and say, okay, here are all of the courses that we offer that align with that, and use it to really plan out their 4-year career at the high school. We've also added a section within that as well, which is another term, so bear with me because again, we have a lot of pathway terms, but it's called the Wisconsin Regional Pathways. And essentially what that is East Troy is a part of what's called Milwaukee 7. So it's a collaboration that includes CISAs, employers, other districts, economic development agencies that look at the surrounding region. They look at the needs within that region and looking at what are our career skills and trainings and opportunities that we have within the area, and looking at how do the schools also play a role in that. And so East Troy has gone through the process to have approval for some of these regional pathways. So things like the digital tech pathway, the construction pathway, the finance pathway. I believe we're working on the advanced manufacturing pathway. And so we're looking at those courses that we offer within those pathways as well. So added just a link to that in there. It's something that can be helpful for students that, again, maybe know what they want to do, and they can see what are some of our courses that we offer in addition to those other pathways that are in there too. So that's in there. And then the other thing that we did too is, again, this is really intended to be a tool for our students. And we've been hearing more and more from our students about how they really appreciate being able to plan out their careers here. And being able to see, okay, when are classes actually being offered, and being able to plan out all the way from 9th grade to 12th grade and what fits where, and being able to take classes. And so hearing that, we knew we needed to update some of the language to be more clear in when some of our courses are offered. So for example, in a lot of our areas, in particular Project Lead the Way, our Family and Consumer Science section, and our Computer Science section, we wanted to put in explicit language so our counselors as well as our students can see this is a class that's offered every other year. So that way they can plan and say, okay, I know I want to take this sequence of courses, but this course is only offered this year. So maybe I should take it 9th grade instead of wait until 10th grade. So it just opens that up so that way students can plan a little bit better and really dig into those sequence of courses as well. So that's been added. And then we also wanted to highlight our CTE website, because we have so much information because there's so much great stuff that we're doing. And so we do have a really great CTE website for our students to be able to see everything from certifications to clubs, beyond just the courses and all of that combined. There's a lot of info on it. So every CTE section also has a highlight to that as well. So just trying to highlight more and more what are the options for students to explore. The entire rest of it, I'm not going to read it to you because it's just to remind you of the new courses that were approved, as well as the curriculum changes that were presented last time. So those all were updated in here as well. So lots of good stuff. Any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. No, I think it looks good.
Thanks,
I'll
Sarah.
make a motion to approve the 23-24 high school planning guide.
Second?
Okay, discussion. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Sarah.
I just want to take a minute to add to that. I don't know if you remember what the planning guide used to look like.
Oh, yeah.
But the amount of time that Sarah puts into the planning guide has really made it accessible for our students and our staff and our counselors and our families. So I think that is so important, and it looks the way it does because we have someone in the role that can work through this process with our staff and really spend the time doing that. So I appreciate the work that went into that.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way easier than it was.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's so much
So many options.
options, yeah, there's so many options, right, which is great. We want that for our students and families to navigate it. It's tricky, and it becomes much more tricky when things are offered every other year in certain classes and courses, right? So, thanks, Sarah, for presenting
Yes.
today.
Yep.
Drive careful.
All right, next item, policy 345.5, promotion, differentiation, and acceleration.
Starts on page 158. This is the third and final reading. There have been no suggestions, so it is in as it was in November and the previous month.
I'll make a motion to approve policy 345.5.
Second.
Discussion?
No.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next one, policy 430, attendance.
On page 182, again, third and final reading. Recommendations did not come forward, so it is the same policy recommendation that was in November and the month before.
Is it 430 and 431 technically? Okay.
Just how it currently is in policy, that didn't change.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve policy 430 as it's been presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Overnight field trip request.
Oh. No talking.
So this, Dr. Kimmer had to amend the agenda for this because you have to qualify
Oh,
to be invited to the leadership conference for FFA. So she wasn't notified all that long ago that they so it's just Ms. Vacula, co-FFA advisor, and two students that qualified for the field trip, but it is overnight. She will take us to Bourbon, halftime leadership conference.
13.
I would say. Stevens Point.
Looks good to me.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the overnight field trip request as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Yep, thanks, Stacy. Notice of school board election.
Yeah, I'll need to read the notification. Notice is hereby given that an election to be held in the East Troy Community School District on Tuesday, April 4th, 2022, the following, April 4th, 2023 it would be though.
Yeah, 23.
I didn't write it, I'm just saying. 2023, the following offices are to be elected to succeed the present incumbent listed. The candidate receiving the highest number of votes will fill the regular terms up for election and serve a 3-year term beginning April 24th, 2023, and ending the fourth Monday in April 2026. Office is for school board member. Incumbent is Stephen Lambrix, 3-year term. Notice is further given that a campaign registration statement and a declaration of candidacy must be filed no later than 5 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, in the office of the school district clerk. If nomination papers are required, the first day to circulate nomination papers is December 1st, 2022, and the filing day for filing nomination papers is 5 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, in the office of the district clerk. Notice is further given that a primary will be necessary and would be held on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, if it's necessary. A description of the school district boundaries can be obtained from the school district office, East Troy, Wisconsin, Walworth County. And I do want to state that at this time, Steve has declared and provided his paperwork for declaration of candidacy. So thank you very much for bringing that over. And if anybody else is interested, to please do so prior to the dates that I've just provided.
Next item, enhancement supplemental compensation request.
That'll go into executive session.
An evaluation of district administrator?
Executive session.
Okay, reports. Chris?
I have
anything?
none.
Kathy, nothing else? Okay. Amy?
I've included the minutes from the November Student Learning Subcommittee meeting on page 189. Essentially, at that meeting, we really dug into the data that was factored into the report card. So we looked at results from the 2022 Wisconsin Student Assessment System data. Adam had referenced that before, kind of digging into the cohort. So we looked at that data from a historical perspective as well as cohort data. Our next meeting is January 16th, 2023 at 4:30 in East Troy High School Library.
Okay. All right, thanks, Amy. Amanda?
So I think it goes nicely with, we had the principals speak into the report card data for each of the buildings. So I just think it's also important to highlight some of the mental health supports and resources that we provide our students. I'm going to preface some of those with some of our YRBS data from 2021 that we now have. And just as a reminder, YRBS is our Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is administered early in 2021. So we've just registered again, so middle school students, grades 6 through 8 take that, as well as high school grades 9 through 12. And they will take that again coming up in the early 2023 year. But just for some information, so the middle school grades 6 through 8 in 2021 had an 83% response rate, and in grades 9 through 12, 70%. Really just means what percentage of those surveys were complete, accurate, and did not have any disqualifying factors. Sorry, Kathy, just not feeling great. No, you're fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna give a little bit of context that kind of leads into some of the mental health supports that we provide. I feel bad for you. That's the only thing. No, you're fine. Okay, so I'm going to start with a lot of the data that I have is around high school right now. I can certainly provide more middle school data. We have comprehensive data for the 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. That could be a larger presentation if you wish. This is a very quick snapshot, okay? So in grades 9 through 12, those students who, obviously this is a self-reported survey, right? So students who had experienced significant problems with anxiety, so it includes within the past 12 months, all students, grades 9 through 12, 48% of those students reported significant problems with anxiety as compared to the state of 52.2. So again, 48% compared to 52.2. Students who self-reported depression, so that's experiencing prolonged disruptive sadness over that year. Again, grades 9 through 12 reported overall 28%. I'd like to make a note that female students were reported approximately 2 times as much as male students. And comparatively to the DPI state data, at 28% of East Troy, the state was at 33.7%. Self-harm, students who intentionally self-harmed without intending to die. Okay, so there are two discriminating factors here. Intentionally self-harmed without intending to die in the past 12 months, grades 9 through 12 was at 16%, compared to the state data of 18.1%. I'd like to make a note that the female to male ratio for this was almost 3 to 1. Okay. Overall, 54% answered affirmatively to at least one of the questions about anxiety, depression, or self-harm. 54%, that's over half of our students. Considered suicide, so students who have seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months, grade 9 through 12, is 12%. Again, 2 times as many females to males. 4% of our high school students have reported to have attempted suicide at least once. Let that sink in. Okay? So the next piece asks about supportive adults. So students who could turn to at least one adult besides their parents, okay, in grades 9 through 12, this is good news, indicated 85% of them indicated that they have a supportive adult outside of their parents that they can turn to. Who do they turn to? In general, 35% of those high school students indicated parent, teacher, or other adult. 44% indicated a friend or a sibling. And 21% were unsure, okay? So we really need to hone in, like, who are those 21% turning to? Do they have someone? How are we looking to make connections to those students specifically? Okay, 6% of high schoolers during the 21-22 school year indicated they were currently vaping. 4%, we're going to talk middle school a second, 4% of middle schoolers, so grades 6 through 8, during the 21-22 school year indicated they were currently vaping. High school, 48% of high school students indicated that they use technology between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. I don't know about you, but I'm sleeping, but 48% of high school students, at least one school night a week, are using technology. 46% of middle school students indicated the same, between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. Since July of 2020, 68% of students appearing in the Village of East Troy Municipal Court have sought professional counseling. Great news, since 2022, 75% of students appearing in the Village Court have sought professional counseling. Okay, so I just wanted to provide you with some context and some information. I can certainly provide more in the future should we want to have that.
So is vaping is not allowed on school grounds, I assume?
No.
Not at all.
No. Okay, so I know it's getting late, but I do want to highlight some of the resources that we do provide our students around social, emotional, learning, overall character traits, right? And our youngest learners, so maybe at Little Prairie, into Prairie View, and then as we move into middle and high school, more specifically when we're talking about what are we doing for our students who are maybe experiencing those levels of anxiety or thoughts of suicide, ideation, or self-harm. Okay, so I will try to paraphrase as much as possible, but I have it written out because some of this is pretty specific in terms of curricular strategies that we utilize. So currently, we in the district utilize what's called Sources of Strength at our middle and high school levels, which is a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program and is being implemented extensively in grades 6 through 12. Okay. In addition to Sources of Strength, we also utilize Signs of Suicide in the education of relationship between suicide and depression. The key message of that has an acronym of ACT, and that is to acknowledge that you're seeing signs of depression or anxiety or suicide in yourself or a friend, and that's serious. Okay, so what do they see? Let your friend know how much you care about them, that's the C, and that you are concerned that they need help. And then the T is to tell a trusted adult that you're worried about yourself or a friend, okay? In conjunction to those, we also train all of our staff in Love and Logic, and did so during the August in-service. So our school counselors and psychologists provided that training to our staff during the in-service, which really, the Love and Logic is research-based principles, which breaks them into really a menu of simple, effective tools. So these are taken directly from Love and Logic, are around respect, appreciation, and that love prevents potential problems. So when students feel respected, appreciated, and loved by their teachers, they're far more motivated and cause far fewer problems, right? So freedom to problem solve and make decisions fosters motivation. So students are far calmer and more motivated when their teachers allow them to make choices, okay, so there's that choice piece, and solve their own problems within limits. Focusing energy on problem prevention is rewarding. So successful educators focus most of their energy on simple tools for preventing misbehavior or keeping it small rather than trying to provide consequences for every problem. And again, these are some strategies that were provided to our teachers. And showing empathy and compassion is effective. So when consequences are necessary, effective educators provide them with sincere empathy or compassion. Again, tools in the toolbox, right? In addition to trained staff, we have and are continuing throughout the school year offering family engagement and training opportunities. So we are providing families with opportunities to incorporate Love and Logic strategies into their daily lives as parents, which really allows just that increased connection between home and school, right? So Parenting with Love and Logic incorporates these two philosophies, which are, again, research-based. The love in Love and Logic with our parent training means that we love our kids so much, we're willing to set and enforce limits. The love also means that we do what we do with sincere compassion and empathy. And the logic in Love and Logic happens when we allow our children to make decisions, affordable mistakes, and experience the natural or logical consequences. So when we balance that with sincere empathy, they develop that logic with the quality that their lives depends on the quality of their choices. I think that's really powerful, even as an adult, right? So Jen Galvin, our Little Prairie School psychologist, and Christine Homily, our Little Prairie School counselor, provided Love and Logic training to early childhood families in a 5-part series throughout the first trimester. An elementary age parenting training will take place throughout a 6-part series, starting in Tri 2 into Tri 3, ending in April. And those are facilitated by Tracy Ojeda, Little Prairie and Prairie View School psychologist, and Ellie Moss, our Prairie View School counselor. So shout out to those ladies for that. I'm gonna keep going because this list is good, okay? So this year, we have a new mental health partnership with Clinical Psychology Associates, which you've been made aware of before. But that collaborative partnership really allows school staff to make referrals for students exhibiting or experiencing a need for that therapeutic level of mental health support. Working with families and students and setting that up. So then therapists are able to come into each of our school buildings. We have designated staff and locations for that to occur privately, of course, during school hours. And then families can also attend family therapies, or students can attend additional therapy sessions within the clinic as well. But it does provide a continuum of services of treatment options for students and our families, okay? At the district's most recent in-service on December 2nd, the Walworth County Health and Human Services came to provide 2 90-minute QPR training sessions to our high school certified staff. QPR Gatekeeper Training, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, is a suicide prevention educational program designed to teach and lay professional gatekeepers the warning signs of a suicide crisis and how to respond appropriately. So the program objectives really for the QPR Gatekeeper training is to recognize someone at risk for suicide. Number 2, intervene with those at risk. So again, ask the questions, persuade the person to seek and accept help, and refer that person to appropriate resources. So our middle school staff, certified staff will be receiving QPR Gatekeeper training at our next in-service date on February 9th. And most recently last week, on December 7th, the Pupil Service team and high school, which was led by Kim Pluis, our district social worker, hosted an expert panel discussion on raising healthy teens. And the panel shared current adolescent healthy habits and parenting strategies to support their teens. Some of the topics including sleeping patterns, nutrition, limiting screen time, understanding the dangers of vaping and tobacco, establishing limits, and more. Expert panel presenters included Walworth County Health Specialist Erin Winden and Patty Strateski, Village of East Troy Municipal Court Judge Michael Cotter, and other medical professionals. Also, as part of that presentation was, again, by Walworth County, called Hidden in Plain Sight. And that's a room, really, that's a demonstration of a teen's bedroom that has approximately 30 red flags, right? So what are some things that kind of are right out in the open that you might be missing as red flags that are signs of substance use? Participants also learned about drug slang, current trends, and signs and symptoms of substance abuse to be aware of. We'll be looking to host a second session of Raising Healthy Teens in late winter, early spring, which will focus more on cell phones, technology, along with healthy limitations. And that is as a result of participant feedback from the panel group. Additionally, I'd like to note that the Pupil Service staff works very hard in day-to-day guidance lessons and providing one-on-one supports to our students each and every day. They're very, very busy with that. Looking ahead, we also have an advisory committee set up that we will be discussing the Get Kids Ahead grant monies, as well as the mental health grant monies with pupil service team and administration in terms of allocation and utilizing high leverage practices to support our continuing and social emotional support of our students. Any questions?
Just a note, I was able to attend the Healthy Teens panel last week online, so thanks to whoever was there. I don't know if it was just, I don't know who was behind the camera that night.
It's always Justin.
But thanks for doing that. Couldn't make it in person, but was
Yeah, thank
glad
you.
to be able to listen from home. And just anecdotal, but there were comments about the new cell phone policies I heard. At least a couple of parents make in a very positive, thank you for doing that way. So, you know, no statistical evidence, but just anecdotal feedback that I think hopefully everyone agrees. Those are two really, well, one policy, two buildings, right? It looks a little different across the buildings, but, and then definitely eager to attend the next one. Again, I know some of the talk was just around, you know, what are we as parents doing to set really good examples for healthy boundaries and healthy limits for things, right? So I'm definitely eager to continue that conversation and kind of collaboration across.
Yeah, absolutely. And being responsive to what our families and students are needing is always the most important piece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you.
late night technology use, I mean, just all of it, right? It was
Absolutely,
just-
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm just going to say, I think it's important, the cell phone policy. I think it's, if it's unique to the district, and I think it's a positive thing, I think that's something more that we need to put out there, that that's what this district does, kind of sets the tone of what the district is about. It's one of the building blocks to establishing the brand name of the district. No cell phone uses, we don't tolerate it. We do these classes, we do this, we do this, we do this. This is unique to this school only. Then it's a policy, or it's a brand that makes the district unique to others and more attractive.
Yeah, and I think a big thing off of that, Dale, I don't disagree at all. I love what you guys are all saying. I think a big component of that brand is the component of, though, we really listen to our student feedback and family feedback and the staff feedback, due to the fact the action that was taken this past year was based upon the staff feedback of their survey, the student feedback on their school perception survey, and the families and the family satisfaction survey, and that triangulation of data led to the policies being discussed and the new practices and actions. And I think that's just really important, so people don't think we just operate from the hip because of a few people or a few thoughts, right? It was the triangulation that clearly demonstrated we need to make this adjustment.
Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to listen to the
Absolutely.
parents. The parents are controlling the school district, and they need to know that. Some school districts, the parents don't control the school district. We're not one of those.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. I agree. I want people to know that data's used. Data's used, it's viewed, it's used, and necessary actions are done from it.
Okay. All right, that's it for reports. No policy review and development, communications announcements?
Yeah, I have a few. Just a shout out to our first CNA course being completed, as Stacy talked about earlier. All 10 students that were in the course completed the course and earned their industry recognized certification for the nursing assistant. And I think it's really important that people recognize too, I mean, the devotion. I mean, these students were arriving at East Troy High School by about 7 o'clock, 6:45, 7 o'clock a.m. every day to complete that. So that's quite the commitment. Stace, do you want to recognize all 10 students? Or do you not have them off the top of your head, kiddo? I don't. Yeah, okay. Yeah. You bet. While you're doing it. So the other thing I'd like to state is at the high school, we were approved for the patient care DPI pathway. So now we have regional pathways in the digital technologies we know, the architecture and construction, business and finance, and the patient care. So just a shout out to Ms. Deb Lysing for completing all the necessary paperwork and processes for us to be considered for that pathway, and to all the teachers that are continuing to provide the rigorous coursework for those pathways. So great job to the entire high school department, to Ms. Keene, Mr. Judd, and to the Department of Teaching and Learning, due to the fact they continue to look at various programs, and more importantly, what are the students telling us, going back to what Dale just said, what are the students telling us that they want? And that we're making those connections. And then a shout out and a thank you to Wisconsin Oven, due to the fact they provided Mr. Mike Hoff and Mr. Mike Moss in our welding area just a ton of scrap metal that they could use. Probably, this is just an approximate guess, but I know Mr. Hoff had stated that he thought it was probably like $1,000 worth of scrap metal just dropped off for the students to be able to utilize.
Perfect.
So just a shout out to Wisconsin Oven and thanking them for doing that. Stace?
So the RN, the nurse that taught our CNA class, so she came to East Troy High School. This is the email that she sent to us at the end of the week. She just said, "Hi, Stacy, I wanted to share the completion photo." So she gave us a photo, it'll be online, of the first CNA class of East Troy. They did a magnificent job. I'm very proud of them. I wanted to thank you once more, along with your staff, for such an amazing support and kindness of this program. See you in January. So she was fantastic, and then I know we've done this a million times, but a huge thank you to Andy Daniels and his department for getting that lab set up, Deb Lysing, Janessa Pluis. I mean, truly was a team effort, and a lot of work went in, but it was a great opportunity. So here's the students. Lily Alexson, Molly Pluis, Maya Rogolski, Riley Fitch, Julia Alexson, Angelo Calvillo, Allison Kesselhan, Anna Cherek, Lucy Schreiber, Angelita Wallington Garcia. So there's the 10.
Okay.
Nope, Angelo is a male. 9 and 1.
Nice.
So they're so cute and very proud, as they should be.
Great.
Do you have anything else? No. Can I?
Of course.
I don't know I don't think we've done this yet. Sorry if it's a repeat, but the lights on the square, I know I don't even know all the people to shout out between the STEAM classes and classroom teachers, and I don't know, I don't want to miss somebody, but I know a lot of groups went into new stuff this year, and it's been really, really, really fun, I think, for the kids, but just everybody in the community to participate with the lights on the square. So thanks to everyone who contributed. The little wands came home. I've got 3 of them. We haven't broken one yet, so
They
it's
went
good.
used them yet? They went around all
Yes,
the candy
we-
canes?
yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Good.
so.
Yeah. The community nights this Saturday, 5 to 8.
This Saturday.
Oh,
Yep.
good, yeah. I forgot about that too, yes.
Mhm.
It's on the website already.
So community night, there's a petting zoo, I think some music, of course, the lights.
hot chocolate station, candy cane craft, a ninja course. It's very Christmassy. I think Santa tours. The middle school lights are going to be, there's going to be a show explaining that. The wands, yep, and ornament pickup for our elementary starts at 7. So there's a flyer that was created that will be an email blast out to all families, and it's on our homepage of the website.
The 17th, right?
The 17th from 5 to 8, yep.
All right. No, that's perfect. Okay, anybody have any future items for the board?
I have one quick question for Andy. Sorry. Do we have any data yet from the new HVA system on utilities cost savings so far? Any data?
We do. Should I just go now? No. So I believe in January.
You can walk away.
No, I believe in January, we're going to be, my department and some of the other supervisors are going to be given presentations on our strategic priorities. And I have that data included already in that presentation. So if you could just stand by for that. So, but it's good news. Yeah, can you wait till next year?
Yeah, well, the reason why, there's a couple, I'll probably email you with some questions on some energy items and that you probably have the data already, because I want to talk about them at the Wednesday meeting and kind of give you my approach on things, okay?
Absolutely.
I'll just email you, okay?
Yeah, that sounds good, Dale.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Future items?
No.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussion of consideration of enhancement supplemental compensation request and evaluation of district administrator as provided under state statute 19.851B and 19.851C.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. Steve? Adam?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We're in close